The Iconian invasion fleet materializes in Earth's orbit, their massive warships eclipsing the sun as they launch a devastating assault on major cities worldwide. Humanity's military forces, despite their best efforts, crumble under the onslaught of superior alien technology. In Washington, D.C., U.S., Marine Corps Sergeant Carl Sullivan leads a small squad defending a strategic communications hub, their determination unyielding in the face of overwhelming odds. Explosions rock the city as Iconian energy weapons tear through buildings and infrastructure. Carl's team hunkers down in the fortified hub, their faces grim but resolute. "Hold the line!" Carl shouts over the din of battle, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We don't give up this position, no matter what." Wave after wave of Iconian attackers assault their position, sleek alien armor glinting in the fires of destruction. Carl's squad fights with everything they have, their human tenacity a stark contrast to the clinical efficiency of the invaders. As ammunition runs low, they resort to guerrilla tactics and improvised weapons, using their knowledge of urban warfare to outmaneuver the technologically superior enemy. Aboard the Iconian flagship hovering above the smoldering city, Commander Rhea, the alien fleet's tactical officer, stares at the holographic display with growing frustration. The humans' unexpected resistance disrupts her carefully planned swift victory. How are they still fighting? She hisses, mandibles clicking in agitation. Send more troops to crush that pocket of resistance. As the battle intensifies, Carl's squad dwindles. 2 Marines fall defending the eastern approach, their sacrifice buying precious minutes for the others. Carl grits his teeth, refusing to let their deaths be in vain. He coordinates with the remaining defenders, using every trick and tactic at their disposal to hold off the relentless alien advance. News of their stubborn defense spreads through military channels, inspiring other human forces around the globe. From the streets of Tokyo to the beaches of Rio de Janeiro, humanity adopts similar strategies of dogged resistance. What should have been an easy conquest for the Iconians transforms into a grueling war of attrition. Commander Rhea's frustration turns to disbelief as reports flood in from other invasion fronts. These Deathworlders. They refuse to accept defeat, she mutters, reassessing their invasion strategy. The resources required to subdue Earth suddenly seem far greater than anticipated. Back at the communications hub, Carl and his 2 remaining Marines prepare for another assault. Their uniforms are tattered, faces streaked with grime and blood, but their eyes burn with unwavering determination. "We hold," Carl says simply, checking his makeshift weapon. "For Earth." As Iconian dropships descend for another attack, humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender echoes across the globe. In the face of near-certain defeat, the human spirit of persistence shines brightly, a beacon of hope in the darkness of invasion. The Iconians may have superior technology, but they're about to learn that conquering Earth will require more than weapons. It will require breaking the indomitable will of its people. As Carl and his 2 remaining Marines brace for another Iconian assault, a crackle of static from their battered radio caught their attention. A voice, filled with urgency but tinged with hope, cut through the noise. "Sergeant Sullivan, this is Major John Hawkins. Your stand has not gone unnoticed. We're coordinating a global resistance, and we need men like you. Can you hold your position for another 48 hours? Carl exchanged glances with his squad, their eyes reflecting a mix of exhaustion and revitalized commitment. He keyed the radio. "We'll hold. Sir, just tell us what you need." "Excellent. Reinforcements are en route." "Stay alive, Sergeant. Hawkins out." As promised, 2 days later, a team of Special Forces operatives infiltrated the city, linking up with Carl's squad. They brought supplies, intelligence, and most importantly, a plan. In the weeks that followed, Carl's team joined the burgeoning resistance movement. They traded the confines of the communications hub for the vast network of hidden bases and safe houses spreading across the country. Carl found himself training civilian volunteers, transforming ordinary people into guerrilla fighters capable of taking on the alien invaders. Meanwhile, high in the Rocky Mountains, Major Hawkins stood before a holographic display, coordinating resistance efforts worldwide. The command center hummed with activity, a stark contrast to the natural serenity outside. Salvaged Iconian tech, its alien geometries at odds with human equipment, formed the backbone of their communications network. "Sir, we've got an update from Dr. Frost," a young lieutenant reported, handing Hawkins a tablet. Hawkins scanned the information, a grim smile forming on his face. "Send this to all field commanders immediately. It's time we start hitting them where it hurts." Across the globe, resistance cells put Dr. Frost's discovery to use. In the sweltering jungles of the Amazon, Chief Raoni led his warriors in a daring raid on an Iconian forward base. They moved like ghosts through the undergrowth, their weapons modified to target the aliens' environmental suits. The Iconians, unused to the oppressive heat and humidity, never saw them coming. Raoni's team struck with precision, exploiting gaps in the aliens' armor where their suits connected. Within minutes, the base fell silent, its occupants gasping for breath in an atmosphere their bodies couldn't process. Similar scenes played out from the frozen wastes of Siberia to the scorching Australian outback. Humanity turned its diverse and often harsh environments into weapons, forcing the Iconians to fight on unfamiliar and unforgiving terrain. In orbit, the USS Phantom slipped between Iconian warships, its experimental cloaking technology rendering it invisible to alien sensors. Captain Marcus Clark stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Target locked, sir," his weapons officer reported. "Iconian supply ship in range." Clark nodded. "Fire." The Phantom's weapons lanced out, striking the alien vessel's vulnerable points with surgical precision. The supply ship erupted in a silent explosion, scattering debris and precious resources into the void. As Clark's fleet continued its hit-and-run attacks, the strain on the Iconian invasion force became evident. Commander Rhea paced the deck of her flagship, mandibles clicking in agitation as she reviewed the latest reports. "How is this possible?" she snarled at her subordinates. They were on the verge of defeat. Now our supply lines are in shambles, and we're losing ground across the planet. An aide approached cautiously. "Commander, we've located what appears to be the humans' primary command center. It's hidden in a mountain range on the northern continent." Rhea's eyes narrowed. "Prepare all available forces. We'll crush this resistance once and for all." As Iconian dropships and warships converged on the Rocky Mountains, alarms blared throughout the human command center. Major Hawkins surveyed the incoming threat, his mind racing through potential strategies. "Get me Sergeant Sullivan," he ordered. "We're going to need every fighter we've got for this one." Miles away, Carl received the call. He turned to his expanded squad, now a mix of hardened veterans and fresh-faced volunteers. "Saddle up, Marines. It's time to remind these aliens why they should never have come to Earth." As both sides prepared for the impending clash, the fate of the war hung in the balance. In the skies above, Captain Clark and the Phantom fleet set course for the Rockies, determined to deny the Iconians their orbital advantage. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. As Carl and his squad prepared for the impending clash, the Rocky Mountains loomed before them, a natural fortress about to become the stage for humanity's most crucial battle yet. The crisp mountain air carried a hint of pine, a stark contrast to the acrid smoke of burning cities they'd left behind. Carl surveyed his team, a mix of hardened veterans and determined civilians turned fighters. Their faces were etched with exhaustion, but their eyes burned with a fierce willpower. He nodded to them, no words needed to convey the weight of their task. The first signs of the Iconian approach came as a low rumble, felt more than heard. Carl's radio crackled to life, Major Hawkins' voice cutting through the static. "Sullivan, they're coming in hot. Remember, hold that choke point at all costs. We're counting on you." "Understood, sir," Carl replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He turned to his squad. "All right, people. You know the plan. Let's show these aliens what Earth hospitality looks like." They moved into position, utilizing every crag and boulder for cover. The narrow mountain pass before them was rigged with an array of traps and ambush points, each designed to exploit the weaknesses they discovered in the Iconian environmental suits. The rumble grew louder, and suddenly the air was filled with the whine of Iconian dropships. They descended like metallic insects, disgorging waves of alien troops into the pass below. Carl raised his hand, signaling his team to hold. The Iconians advanced, their sleek armor glinting in the mountain sunlight. As they reached the first marker, Carl brought his hand down sharply. The mountain erupted in chaos. Hidden charges detonated, sending showers of razor-sharp shrapnel tearing through the alien ranks. The Iconian surprise screeches were cut short as they scrambled for cover. "Now!" Carl shouted, and his team opened fire. Their weapons, modified to target the vulnerable joints of the Iconian suits, found their marks with deadly accuracy. Alien after alien fell, their life-sustaining atmosphere hissing out into the thin mountain air. But the Iconians were quick to regroup. Energy weapons lanced out, scorching the rocks around Carl's position. He ducked as a bolt sizzled past his ear, feeling the heat of near-miss. "Shift to position B," he ordered, and his team began a choreographed retreat, drawing the aliens deeper into the kill zone. As the ground battle raged, the sky above became a theater of its own. The USS Phantom and its stealth fleet emerged from hiding, striking at the Iconian command ships with surgical precision. Captain Marcus Clark stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as his ships danced between the lumbering alien vessels. "Target their communication arrays," he commanded. "Cut them off from ground support." The Phantom's weapons flared, slicing through the Iconian ship's defenses. One by one, the alien vessels lost their ability to coordinate with their ground forces. In orbit, Commander Rhea watched in growing horror as her carefully laid plans unraveled. "How are they doing this?" she snarled, her mandibles clicking furiously. "Find those human ships and destroy them." But the Phantom and its fleet were already gone, cloaked and moving to their next target. Seeing her space support crumbling, Rhea made a fateful decision. "Prepare my personal dropship," she ordered. "I'll lead the assault on their command center myself." Back on the ground, Carl and his team had fallen back to their secondary positions. The pass behind them was littered with Iconian bodies and the smoking wrecks of their vehicles. But still they came, a seemingly endless tide of alien invaders. Suddenly, the air was filled with a fine mist. The Iconians faltered, their movements becoming erratic. Carl grinned, recognizing Dr. Frost's handiwork. The aerosol weapon was working, eating through the alien suit seals. "Push them back!" Carl shouted, leading a countercharge. His team surged forward, taking advantage of the Iconians' confusion. As they fought, the mountain itself seemed to join the battle. Carefully placed explosives triggered avalanches, channeling the alien forces into prepared killing zones. Carl's squad, now mobile and striking from multiple angles, exacted a heavy toll on the invaders. In the heart of the mountain, Major Hawkins coordinated the defense from the real command center. Monitors showed the progress of the battle, while technicians worked furiously to process new intel. A young lieutenant burst in, her face flushed with excitement. "Sir, we received a transmission from an Iconian defector. He's provided crucial information about their battle plans." Hawkins' eyes widened. This could change everything. He quickly adjusted their strategy, relaying new orders to the defending forces. Outside, the battle reached its peak as Commander Rhea's dropship breached the outer defenses. She led her elite warriors towards what she believed was the human command center, only to find herself walking into a trap. The decoy exploded in a cloud of corrosive gas and shrapnel. Rhea stumbled back, her suit integrity compromised. "Fall back!" she screamed, realizing too late the extent of her miscalculation. As the Iconian forces began to retreat, Carl and his team pressed their advantage. They engaged in close-quarters combat, their familiarity with Earth's gravity and atmosphere giving them a decisive edge. The battle raged on, but the tide had turned. Humanity, once on the brink of defeat, now stood poised to reclaim their world. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the battlefield, it was clear that this was more than just a victory. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the war against the Iconian invaders. Carl stood atop a ridge, watching the Iconian ships streaking away into the darkening sky. He knew the fight was just getting started, but for the first time since the invasion began, he felt a glimmer of hope. Humanity had proven its worth, and the Iconians had learned a harsh lesson about underestimating the inhabitants of this small, blue planet. As night fell, the resistance forces began to regroup, tending to their wounded and salvaging what they could from the battlefield. They knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, they had earned their rest. The Rocky Mountains stood silent, bearing witness to humanity's indomitable spirit and the turning point of an interstellar war. As the last rays of sunlight faded behind the Rocky Mountains, Carl Sullivan surveyed the aftermath of their hard-won victory. The smoking remains of Iconian ships littered the battlefield, a testament to humanity's resilience. But he knew this was just the beginning. Major John Hawkins' voice crackled over the comm system. "Sullivan, report to command immediately. We're not done yet." Carl made his way through the bustling command center, where technicians and officers worked feverishly to process the influx of data from the battle. He found Hawkins hunched over a holographic display, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the tactical map. "Sir," Carl saluted, reporting as ordered. Hawkins looked up, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of exhaustion and tenacity. "We've got them on the ropes, Sullivan. It's time to push our advantage. I'm initiating Operation Thunderbolt." The Major quickly outlined the plan, emphasizing the need to strike swiftly while the Iconians were still reeling from their defeat. "New York City is our first target," Hawkins explained. "Your squad will spearhead the assault." Within hours, Carl and his team were en route to the Big Apple, their transport weaving through the cover of darkness. As they approached the outskirts of the city, the devastation became apparent. Once towering skyscrapers now stood as hollow shells, their windows dark and lifeless. "Remember," Carl addressed the squad, "we used the city to our advantage. The subway tunnels, the sewers, they're our highways now." They infiltrated the city under the cover of night, using the vast network of underground passages to outmaneuver the Iconian patrols above. The alien occupiers, accustomed to the open battlefields of their previous encounters, were ill-prepared for urban warfare. As dawn broke over the city, Carl's team emerged from a maintenance tunnel near Times Square. The iconic location, once a vibrant hub of human activity, now served as an Iconian command post. Massive holographic displays projected alien script into the air, while armored troops patrolled the empty streets. Carl signaled to his team, and they moved into position. With practiced precision, they deployed Dr. Frost's corrosive agent, launching canisters that burst into a fine mist upon impact. The effect was immediate and devastating. Iconian soldiers stumbled and flailed as their environmental suits began to disintegrate. Panic spread through their ranks as they realized the very air had become their enemy. Carl and his squad pressed their advantage, their weapons finding vulnerable targets with deadly accuracy. As the battle for New York raged on the ground, a different kind of warfare unfolded in orbit. Captain Marcus Clark stood on the bridge of the USS Phantom, his eyes fixed on the tactical display showing Earth and the swarm of Iconian ships surrounding it. "All ships, prepare to engage," Clark ordered. "Remember, we hit hard and fast. Don't give them time to react." The Phantom and its stealth fleet blinked into visibility, their weapons already locked onto the Iconian supply depots. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out, slicing through the alien structures with surgical precision. Explosions bloomed silently in the vacuum of space as vital resources and equipment were reduced to orbiting debris. Back on Earth, the newly appointed Iconian commander Cryax raged at the reports flooding in from all fronts. "Impossible," he snarled, his mandibles clicking furiously. "How can these primitive creatures be causing such damage?" In response to the mounting losses, Cryax implemented his scorched earth policy. "If we cannot hold these cities, then neither shall they," he declared. "Burn it all." Iconian weapons of mass destruction rained down on human infrastructure, reducing power plants, communication hubs, and transportation networks to rubble. But even as they destroyed, they found themselves increasingly on the defensive. In a secret laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Emily Frost worked tirelessly on her newest project. Surrounded by a team of international scientists, she pored over data collected from captured Iconians and the remains of their environmental suits. "We're close," she muttered, her eyes never leaving the microscope. "If we can just isolate this protein sequence." As the days turned into weeks, Operation Thunderbolt gained momentum. Cities across North America and Europe began to fall back into human hands. Each victory brought not only a sense of hope, but also valuable alien technology to be studied and reverse engineered. It was during the liberation of Chicago that Lieutenant Jake Martinez made his breakthrough. Working with a team of engineers in a makeshift lab, he successfully activated a captured piece of Iconian anti-gravity tech. "Holy shit," he breathed as the device hummed to life, lifting a chunk of concrete as if it were weightless. "This changes everything." Word of Martinez's gravity sleds spread like wildfire through the resistance. Improvised factories sprang up, churning out these game-changing devices that allowed human forces to match the Iconians' mobility. As Carl Sullivan led his team through the streets of a newly liberated Boston, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride at how far they'd come. But he knew the war was nowhere near the end. The skies still belonged to the Iconians, and as long as they maintained orbital superiority, humanity remained at risk. It was then that Major Hawkins' voice came through on the secure channel, outlining his most audacious plan yet. "We're going to capture an Iconian destroyer," he announced. "And you, Sullivan, are going to lead the boarding party." Carl looked up at the sky, where the faint shapes of alien ships could be seen even in broad daylight. He took a deep breath, knowing that the coming mission would push him and his team to their absolute limits. But as he watched a group of civilians emerge from hiding, their faces lighting up at the sight of human soldiers, he knew that failure was not an option. The future of Earth hung in the balance, and humanity was ready to take the fight to the stars. Stars. The gravity of the mission burdened immensely on Carl's mind as he made his way to the briefing room. Major Hawkins was already there, surrounded by holographic displays of Iconian ship schematics. "Sullivan, glad you're here," Hawkins said, his voice tense with anticipation. "Operation Starhammer is a go. You and your team will be the tip of the spear in our boldest move yet." Carl's eyes widened as he absorbed the details of the plan. Capturing an Iconian destroyer seemed impossible, but then again, so had liberating Earth cities just weeks ago. "Sir, who else will be on the team?" Carl asked, already mentally preparing for the challenge ahead. Hawkins tapped the control, and new faces appeared on the display. "You'll be working with Lieutenant Jake Martinez and his pilots. They've been instrumental in adapting the gravity sled technology for space operations." Over the next few weeks, Carl and his expanded team threw themselves into intensive training. The secret facility deep in the Appalachian Mountains became their home, Its cavernous space is transformed into a mock-up of an Iconian destroyer. Carl grunted as he pushed off a wall, floating through the zero-gravity chamber. He twisted his body, narrowly avoiding a training drone designed to simulate Iconian defenses. "Watch your six, Sullivan," Martinez called out, zipping past on a modified gravity sled. The lieutenant's expertise with the alien tech was impressive, his movements fluid and precise in the weightless environment. Day after day, they honed their skills. They studied Iconian ship layouts, practiced breaching airlocks, and familiarized themselves with the alien technology they'd be facing. The intelligence provided by the defector Zarkay proved invaluable, giving them insights into Iconian protocols and weak points. As the team trained, reports from orbit kept them motivated. Captain Marcus Clark and the USS Phantom continued their guerrilla tactics, steadily eroding the Iconian fleet's numbers. Each successful strike brought them closer to their chance to board an enemy ship. In her lab, Dr. Emily Frost worked tirelessly on the final component of their plan. Carl watched as she demonstrated the new bioweapon delivery system integrated into their spacesuits. "Once you're aboard, this will allow you to release the incapacitating agent directly into their life support," Frost explained, her eyes gleaming with pride. "It should give you the edge you need." Finally, the day of the mission arrived. Carl stood in the hangar bay, surrounded by his team. The gravity sleds hummed softly, ready for their approach. He could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Remember your training," Carl said, his voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We've prepared for this. We know what to do." They launched into space, their modified sleds carrying them swiftly and silently through the debris field left by previous battles. Carl's heart raced as they approached the massive Iconian destroyer, its hull gleaming in the starlight. Suddenly, a burst of light flooded their visors. Carl's stomach dropped as he realized what had happened. "Solar flare!" Martinez shouted over the comm. "Our cloaking is down!" Carl saw the Iconian ship come to life, its weapon systems powering up. There was no time for their original stealth plan. "All units full thrust." Carl commanded. "Martinez, get us an entry point." The team surged forward, dodging energy blasts that lit up the void around them. Martinez, his hands flying over his sled's controls, raced ahead. Carl watched in awe as the lieutenant interfaced with the Iconian systems, forcing an airlock to cycle open. "We're in," Martinez yelled as they barreled through the opening. The interior of the ship was chaos. Alarms blared as Iconian crew members scrambled to repel the boarders. Carl and his team moved swiftly, deploying Frost bioweapon into the ship's ventilation system. Many Iconians fell quickly, overcome by the incapacitating agent. But others, clad in sealed battle armor, put up fierce resistance. Carl found himself in close-quarters combat, grappling with an Iconian soldier in the tight confines of a corridor. "Push to the bridge," Carl shouted, ducking under a swipe from his opponent's clawed hand. He used the low gravity to his advantage, springing off a wall to deliver a powerful kick that sent the Iconian tumbling. As they fought their way through the ship, Carl could hear Captain Clark's voice over the comm, coordinating the distraction outside. The Phantom and its fleet were keeping the other Iconian ships busy, giving them the precious time they needed. Finally, they reached the bridge. Carl burst through the door, weapon raised, to find himself face to face with the ship's commander. The Iconian, taller and more ornately armored than the others, stood defiantly at the ship's main control console. "I am Vorthal," the alien announced, its voice a harsh rasp through its translator. "You will go no further, human." Carl lowered his weapon slightly, an idea forming. "Commander Vorthal," he said, "look around you. Your crew is incapacitated. Your fleet is occupied. And we've boarded your ship with technology you thought we couldn't possibly have. Vorthal's eyes narrowed, but Carl could see uncertainty in the alien's posture. "This war," Carl continued, "it doesn't have to go on. You've seen what we can do, how we can adapt. How long before we push you off our planet entirely? How many more lives will be lost?" For a long moment, the bridge was silent save for the muted sounds of battle outside. Then, slowly, Vorthal's shoulders slumped. "Perhaps," the Iconian said quietly, "it is time we considered alternatives." With Vorthal's surrender, the ship was theirs. Carl relayed the news to Major Hawkins, who immediately ordered their extraction. As the newly christened HSS Defiance began its descent into Earth's atmosphere, protected by the Phantom and its fleet, Carl allowed himself a moment of relief. They had done it. They had captured an Iconian destroyer. But as he looked at the alien ship's controls, now under human operation, he knew their work was just getting started. The war was entering a new phase, and humanity was about to take its first steps into a much larger conflict. Carl turned to Martinez, who was already poring over the ship systems. "What do you make of it, Lieutenant?" Martinez looked up, his eyes wide with excitement. "This tech, Sullivan. It's going to change everything. Faster than light travel. Weapons we've only dreamed of. We can take the fight to them now." As the Defiance broke through Earth's atmosphere, Carl couldn't help but wonder what challenges lay ahead. They had won a significant victory, but the Iconians would not take this loss lightly. And now, with the promise of interstellar travel within their grasp, the scope of the conflict was about to expand beyond anything they had imagined. The captured Iconian destroyer represented not just a tactical advantage, but a gateway to the stars themselves. As the HSS Defiance touched down in a remote area of the Australian outback, Carl marveled at the ingenuity of Major Hawkins' plan. The vast, empty landscape stretched out before them, providing natural camouflage against orbital detection. "Welcome to Project Prometheus," Major Hawkins announced as Carl and his team disembarked. The facility, a sprawling complex of prefabricated buildings and repurposed shipping containers, buzzed with activity. Dr. Emily Frost greeted them, her eyes alight with excitement. "We've already begun preliminary analysis of the ship systems," she said, leading them towards a makeshift lab. "The potential here is staggering." Over the next few weeks, Carl found himself immersed in a world of cutting-edge science and reverse engineering. He watched in awe as Dr. Frost and her team meticulously dissected Iconian technology, unraveling its secrets piece by piece. Lieutenant Jake Martinez proved invaluable, his intuitive understanding of alien tech accelerating their progress. Carl often found him hunched over holographic displays, fingers dancing across alien interfaces as he coaxed out their secrets. "Look at this," Martinez called out one day, his voice filled with wonder. Carl hurried over, joined by Dr. Frost and Major Hawkins. On the screen before them, a complex schematic slowly determined itself into recognizable form. "Is that?" Carl began, hardly daring to believe it. Dr. Frost nodded, her voice hushed. "Faster-than-light drive technology. We've cracked it." The implications were enormous, but their celebration was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing urgently. "Orbital scan detected," a technician shouted. "Iconian ships are sweeping the area." Major Hawkins sprang into action. "Initiate protocol, Phantom," he ordered. "Get that cloaking net up now." Carl watched in tense silence as a massive camouflage net, interwoven with salvaged Iconian cloaking tech, unfurled over the entire facility. The seconds ticked by agonizingly slow as they waited to see if their deception would hold. Finally, the all-clear signal sounded. They had remained undetected, but the close call underscored the precarious nature of their position. As the weeks turned into months, progress at Project Prometheus accelerated. The FDL drive was successfully adapted for human use, and work began on retrofitting existing ships with the new technology. Carl was present when the USS Phantom returned to Earth, sliding into the hidden hangar of Project Prometheus. He couldn't help but smile at the look of amazement on Captain Marcus Clark's face as he surveyed the facility. "Quite the operation you've got here, Sullivan," Clark said, shaking Carl's hand. "I hear you've got some upgrades for my ship." The transformation of the Phantom was nothing short of miraculous. Carl watched as Martinez and his team integrated the FDL drive, enhancing the ship's already formidable stealth capabilities with the ability to strike anywhere in Iconian-controlled space. It was during this time that Carl met Colonel Alexei Volkov, a bear of a man with steel-gray eyes that seemed to see right through you. The former Spetsnaz operator had been brought in to develop strategies for off-world operations, and his unconventional tactics quickly proved their worth. "The Iconians expect us to cower and hide," Volkov said during a strategy session, his accented voice filled with conviction. "We will show them that humans can strike from the shadows anywhere, anytime." As they prepared for their first interstellar strike, disturbing news reached them through their network of Iconian defectors. Commander Kryax, growing increasingly desperate, had ordered the construction of a massive energy weapon capable of devastating entire cities. Major Hawkins called an emergency meeting. "We need to take out that weapon before it becomes operational," he said, his face grim. "This is what we've been preparing for." Carl felt a surge of anticipation as Hawkins outlined the plan. The HSS Defiance, now a hybrid of human and Iconian technology, would lead the assault. Carl would command the mission, with a specially trained crew at his side. As the day of the operation approached, Carl spent every waking moment preparing. He studied Iconian battle tactics, ran countless simulations, and worked closely with Volkov to refine their strategy. The night before the mission, Carl found himself standing outside the facility, gazing up at the star-filled sky. The vastness of space no longer seemed so insurmountable. Humanity was about to take its first real steps into the cosmic arena, and he would be at the forefront. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Dr. Frost's voice startled him from his reverie. She joined him. Her eyes also turned skyward. "I never thought I'd see the day when we'd be preparing to fight an interstellar war." Carl nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "We've come so far," he said quietly. "But tomorrow, we find out if it's enough." As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Carl made his way to the HSS Defiance. His crew was already aboard, each person handpicked for this crucial mission. He took his place on the bridge, surveying the blend of human and Iconian controls before him. "All systems check out, Commander," Martinez reported from his station. "FDL drive is primed and ready." Carl took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the ship's main control interface. This was it, the moment that would define humanity's future among the stars. "Initiate launch sequence," he ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Let's show the Iconians what we're made of." The HSS Defiance hummed to life, rising silently from its hidden berth. As they ascended through the atmosphere, Carl's thoughts turned to the challenges that lay ahead. They were about to strike deep into enemy territory, facing dangers they could scarcely imagine. But as Earth receded behind them and the vast expanse of space opened up before them, Carl felt a surge of willpower. They had the element of surprise, the power of Iconian technology, and the indomitable spirit of humanity on their side. The stars beckoned, and humanity was ready to answer the call. As the stars streaked by outside the viewports, Carl felt a surge of pride in his crew and their mission. They were humanity's vanguard, striking out into the cosmos to secure Earth's future. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Martinez's voice cut through the noise. "Commander Sullivan, We're receiving an urgent transmission from Major Hawkins. Carl rushed to the communications station, his heart racing. Major Hawkins' face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Sullivan, we've got a situation. Intelligence reports indicate that Commander Kryax's planet killer weapon is nearing completion on the far side of the moon. We're accelerating the mission timeline. Carl's mind raced as he processed this new information. Understood. Sir, what are our orders? Your primary mission remains unchanged, Hawkins replied. Disrupt Iconian supply lines in deep space. But we're launching a simultaneous operation. Colonel Volkov is leading a team to infiltrate and destroy the planet killer. As Hawkins outlined the details of the two-pronged attack, Carl felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The fate of Earth now hinged on the success of both missions. We won't let you down, sir, Carl assured him. As the transmission ended, Carl turned to address his crew. Change of plans, people. We're now part of a coordinated strike against the Iconians. Our mission is crucial in keeping their forces occupied, while Colonel Volkov's team takes out the planet killer. The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the crew prepared for their first real engagement. Carl watched with pride as his team, a mix of human fighters and Iconian defectors, worked seamlessly together. Zarke, the Iconian defector who had become an invaluable member of the crew, approached Carl. Commander, I've analyzed the data on Iconian patrol patterns. There's a heavily guarded supply route in Sector 47. Disrupting it would significantly impact their operations. Carl nodded. Good work, Zarke. Martinez, set a course for Sector 47. Let's show the Iconians what this ship can do. As the HSS Defiance entered Sector 47, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Suddenly, the sensor array lit up with multiple contacts. Iconian patrol fleet detected, shouted the tactical officer. 5 destroyers and numerous fighter escorts. Carl's mind raced as he assessed the situation. They were heavily outnumbered, but the Defiance's hybrid technology gave them an edge. Battle stations. Martinez, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Weapons. Target the lead destroyer's propulsion systems. The space around them erupted into chaos as the Iconian fleet opened fire. The Defiance's shields flickered under the assault but held. Carl watched in awe as Martinez's hands flew over the controls, the ship dancing between enemy fire with impossible agility. Now, Carl shouted. The Defiance's main cannon, a fusion of human and Iconian tech, fired a brilliant beam of energy that sliced through the lead destroyer's engines. The Iconian ship listed helplessly, its power systems failing. The battle raged on, a deadly dance of energy weapons and tactical maneuvers. Carl's crew worked like a well-oiled machine, their training and the ship's advanced systems allowing them to outmaneuver the numerically superior force. As the last Iconian ship retreated, leaving behind the wreckage of its comrades, Carl allowed himself a moment of triumph. Damage report, he called out. Minor hull breaches on decks 3 and 4 already sealed, came the response. Shields at 60% and regenerating. No casualties. Carl nodded, impressed by the Defiance's performance. Well done, everyone, but our mission's not over yet. Martinez, scan the area for that supply depot. As Martinez worked, Carl's thoughts turned to Colonel Volkov's team. He hoped their mission to the moon was proceeding as successfully as their own. Suddenly, Martinez's voice cut through his thoughts. Commander, I've found something. There's a massive energy signature coming from an asteroid field nearby. It matches the profile of an Iconian supply depot. Carl studied the sensor readings, his mind racing with possibilities. This depot likely contained resources crucial to the Iconian war effort. Destroying it could deal a significant blow to their operations. Change of plans, Carl announced to his crew. We're going after that supply depot. It's time to show the Iconians that we can strike them anywhere, even in the depths of space. As the Defiance maneuvered into the asteroid field, Carl knew they were about to face their greatest challenge yet. But as he looked at his determined crew, he felt a surge of confidence. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, for the sake of Earth and all of humanity. The massive Iconian supply depot loomed before them, nestled deep within the asteroid field. Its scale was staggering, easily dwarfing the Defiance. Swarms of Iconian defense ships patrolled the area, their sensors sweeping for any sign of threat. Tactical analysis, Carl ordered, his eyes never leaving the viewport. The tactical officer's voice was tense as she reported. Multiple defense platforms detected. Sir, heavy energy weapons, missile launchers, and something our systems can't identify. Looks like experimental tech. Carl's mind raced, weighing their options. A frontal assault would be suicide, but the depot's destruction could turn the tide of the war. They needed a plan and fast. Say, Carl called to the Iconian defector. What can you tell us about the depot's weaknesses? Zarke studied the scans, his alien features furrowed in concentration. The main reactor is here. He pointed to a section near the center of the structure. A precision strike could trigger a chain reaction, but we'd need to get past those defenses. Carl nodded, an idea forming. Martinez, how close can you get us using the asteroid field for cover? The lieutenant's hands danced over the controls, running simulations. Closer, but those patrol ships will spot us before we're in firing range. Then we'll give them something else to look at, Carl said, a determined glint in his eye. Prepare to deploy our Phantom drones. We'll use them to create a diversion while we make our approach. As the crew sprang into action, Carl felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came before a battle. The fate of Earth might well hinge on the outcome of this engagement. But as he looked at his crew, human and Iconian alike, working together with unwavering focus, he knew they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The Defiance glided silently through the asteroid field, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible. Ahead, the Iconian supply depot bristled with weaponry, its defenders unaware of the threat lurking in their midst. Phantom drones away, reported the tactical officer. Carl watched on the tactical display as a swarm of small, unmanned craft emerged from the Defiance's launch tubes. They streaked towards the depot, their signals mimicking those of human attack ships. The effect was instantaneous. Alarms blared across the Iconian communication channels as the defenders scrambled to repel what they perceived as a major assault. Energy weapons lanced out, trying to track the nimble drones as they weaved between the asteroids. Now's our chance, Carl said, his voice steady despite the tension. Take us in, Martinez. Weapons. Prepare to fire on my mark. The Defiance surged forward, its hybrid engines pushing it to speeds no human ship had ever achieved. They streaked past the distracted defenders, aiming straight for the heart of the depot. Sir, the sensor officer called out, panic in her voice. They've spotted us. Carl gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered under sudden impacts. Evasive maneuvers. Concentrate fire on that reactor. The space around them erupted into chaos as the Defiance engaged in a deadly dance with the Iconian defenders. Energy beams crisscrossed the void, while missiles streaked past, detonating against asteroids and ship alike. Through it all, Martinez's piloting was nothing short of miraculous. The Defiance twisted and turned, somehow avoiding the worst of the barrage while closing in on its target. "We're in range," shouted the weapons officer. Carl took a deep breath, knowing that everything hinged on this moment. Fire! The Defiance's main cannon unleashed a searing beam of energy, the result of human and Iconian technology combined. It struck the depot's reactor with pinpoint accuracy, punching through layers of armor and failsafes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, A blinding flash erupted from the heart of the depot. Secondary explosions rippled across its surface as the chain reaction took hold. "Get us out of here," Carl ordered, and Martinez needed no further prompting. The Defiance turned on a dime, its engines flaring as it raced to escape the expanding ball of destruction that threatened to engulf them. The Defiance rocketed through the debris field, narrowly avoiding chunks of the exploding depot. The ship shuddered as smaller pieces impacted their shields, but Martinez's expert piloting kept them one step ahead of disaster. As they cleared the immediate danger zone, Carl allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "Status report," he ordered, his eyes scanning the tactical display for any signs of pursuit. "Shields at 40%, minor damage to the outer hull," reported the tactical officer. "No casualties. Sir, we've dealt a significant blow to the Iconian supply chain." Carl nodded, but before he could respond, the sensor officer's voice cut through the moment of triumph. "Commander, I'm detecting a massive energy signature approaching our position. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." The crew watched in stunned silence as a colossal energy shield materialized around the remains of the depot, encompassing a vast swath of the asteroid field. The Defiance's weapons fire dissipated harmlessly against its surface. "Zareke, what are we looking at?" Carl demanded, turning to the Iconian defector. Zareke's eyes widened as he studied the readings. "It's a Nexus shield, an experimental defense system. I've only heard rumors of its existence. It can absorb and redirect energy on a massive scale." Carl's mind raced, assessing their options. Their primary mission was accomplished, but leaving this new defense system intact could jeopardize future operations. He opened a channel to the entire ship. "All hands, this is Commander Sullivan. We've struck a blow against the Iconians, but our job isn't finished. We're going to take down that shield." As the crew acknowledged his orders, Carl turned to Martinez. "Get us close to those asteroids. I have an idea." The Defiance maneuvered through the debris field, its modified gravity generators humming with power. Carl watched as the ship's tractor beams locked onto a massive asteroid, easily twice the size of the Defiance itself. "Sir, what exactly are we doing?" Martinez asked, his hand steady on the controls despite the strain of maneuvering with such a massive object in tow. Carl allowed himself a grim smile. "Sometimes, Lieutenant, the old ways are the best. We're going to use these asteroids as projectiles. The shield may be able to absorb energy weapons, but let's see how it handles good old-fashioned kinetic impacts." The plan was put into action immediately. The Defiance's engine strained as it accelerated, dragging the massive asteroid behind it. As they approached the shield, Carl gave the order to release. The asteroid hurtled forward, its momentum carrying it straight into the shimmering barrier. The impact was spectacular. The shield flared brightly, struggling to absorb the enormous kinetic energy. For a moment, it seemed to hold, but then a visible ripple spread from the point of impact. "Again!" Carl ordered, and Martinez was already maneuvering towards another asteroid. As they prepared for a second attack, the tactical officer's voice rang out. "Sir, multiple contacts approaching. Iconian reinforcements, ETA 20 minutes. Carl's lips pursed. They were running out of time. "Keep at it. We need to breach that shield before they arrive." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity. The Defiance hurled asteroid after asteroid at the shield, each impact weakening it further. The crew worked with precision born of desperation, knowing that failure wasn't an option. Just as the Iconian ships appeared on long-range sensors, a final, massive asteroid struck the shield. There was a blinding flash, and suddenly, the barrier collapsed. "Shield down!" shouted the tactical officer, her voice filled with disbelief and triumph. Carl allowed himself a brief moment of celebration before snapping back into action. target any remaining depot structures. We need to finish the job before those reinforcements arrive. The Defiance's weapons blazed, tearing into the exposed remains of the supply depot. Explosions blossomed in the vacuum of space as vital systems were destroyed one by one. As the last of the depot's power signatures winked out, Carl turned his attention to the approaching Iconian fleet. They were outnumbered and their ship was battered from the recent fight. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Martinez plotted a course through the densest part of the debris field. We'll use it for cover while we make our escape. As the Defiance weaved through the asteroid field, debris from their destroyed target providing a chaotic screen against Iconian sensors, Carl received an urgent transmission from Earth. Major Hawkins' grim face appeared on the screen. "Sullivan, we've got a situation. The Iconians are sending a massive reinforcement fleet. Millions of troops, advanced weaponry. They'll be here in 72 hours. I'm initiating Operation Last Stand. We need you back here ASAP." Carl's mind raced, processing the implications of this new threat. "Understood. Sir, we're on our way." As he ended the transmission, Carl turned to his crew. The gravity of the situation was etched on their faces, but he saw dedication there as well. "Set course for Earth," he ordered, his voice steady. "We've won a victory here, but the real fight is just beginning." The Defiance's engines flared to life, propelling them towards home and the looming battle that would decide the fate of humanity. As they left the shattered remains of the Iconian depot behind, Carl couldn't help but wonder what challenges awaited them on Earth, and if their victories here would be enough to turn the tide of war. The Defiance streaked through space, leaving the shattered remains of the Iconian depot behind. As they raced towards Earth, the ship's sensors suddenly lit up with multiple contacts. "Commander," the tactical officer called out, her voice tense. "We've got company. Iconian reinforcements, closing fast." Carl's eyes sharp as he assessed the situation. They were caught between the approaching Iconian fleet and Earth's orbit, with nowhere to run. "Martinez, bring us about," he ordered. "We'll make our stand here in the asteroid field." As the Defiance maneuvered into position, Carl opened a ship-wide channel. "All hands, this is Commander Sullivan. We've struck a blow against the Iconians, but our fight isn't over. Earth needs us to hold the line here, and that's exactly what we're going to do." The crew sprang into action, their movements precise despite the looming threat. Engineers rushed to modify their remaining weapons, incorporating salvage components from the destroyed depot. The ship's gravity generators hummed with increased power as they were repurposed for an unorthodox defensive strategy. "Sir," Martinez called out, his hands dancing over the controls, "I've identified a cluster of asteroids we can use for cover and ammunition." Carl nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Good thinking, Lieutenant. Let's give these bastards a taste of old-fashioned rock throwing." As the Defiance took up its position, the first wave of Iconian ships emerged from FDL, their sleek hulls gleaming in the starlight. Without hesitation, they opened fire, energy beams lancing out towards the lone human vessel. "Evasive maneuvers," Carl shouted, gripping his command chair as the ship lurched to avoid the barrage. The Defiance's newly modified weapons roared to life, unleashing a devastating volley that caught the lead Iconian ship off guard. Its shields flared and failed under the enhanced firepower, leaving it vulnerable to a follow-up strike that tore through its hull. But the Iconians pressed their attack, their superior numbers threatening to overwhelm the single human ship. Carl watched the tactical display with growing concern as more enemy vessels poured into the system. "Activate the gravity generators," he ordered. "Let's see how they handle a little asteroid shower." The ship's gravity generators pulsed, reaching out to grasp nearby asteroids. With a flick of Martinez's controls, the massive rocks hurtled towards the oncoming Iconian fleet. "The alien ships!" caught off guard by this primitive yet effective tactic, scattered in disarray. Several smaller vessels were crushed outright, while others suffered significant damage. As the battle raged on, Carl received an urgent transmission from Earth. Major Hawkins' face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of grit and barely held back excitement. "Sullivan, we've got a game changer. Dr. Frost has found a way to broadcast the cognitive disruptor's effects over a wide area. We're transmitting the specs now. And there's more. We're seeing signs of dissent within the Iconian ranks. Some of their ships are turning against their own." Carl's mind raced with the implications of this news. "Understood. Sir will put that disruptor to good use out here." As the transmission ended, Carl turned to his crew. "Engineering, I want that cognitive disruptor modified and ready to broadcast within 10 minutes. Tactical, prepare to target their command ship specifically. Let's see if we can encourage this Iconian rebellion." The next few minutes were a blur of frantic activity as the crew worked to implement the new strategy. The Defiance danced through the asteroid field, using the debris as cover while launching precision strikes against key Iconian vessels. When the modified cognitive disruptor came online, its effects were immediate and dramatic. Iconian ships began to break formation, their coordinated attacks dissolving into chaos. And as predicted, several vessels turned their weapons on their former allies, adding to the confusion. Seizing the initiative, Carl ordered a bold push towards the heart of the Iconian fleet. The Defiance's engines roared as it charged forward, its weapons blazing. They targeted the largest command ships, seeking to further disrupt the alien chain of command. As they fought, Carl couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. What had seemed like a desperate last stand was turning into something more, a real chance at victory. But he knew the battle was far from finished. The main bulk of the Iconian reinforcements was still en route, and Earth's forces, though fighting valiantly, were stretched thin. The Defiance shuddered as a glancing blow slipped past their defenses. Warning klaxons blared, and damage reports flooded in from across the ship. Carl gritted his teeth, knowing that despite their successes, they were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned. As he prepared to order another attack run, a new alert sounded from the sensor station. "Commander," the officer called out, her voice filled with a mixture of surprise and relief. Multiple FDL signatures detected. It's our ship, sir. Earth's fleet is joining the battle." Carl watched in awe as a ragtag fleet of human vessels, led by what appeared to be a retrofitted aircraft carrier, jumped into the fray. At their head was a ship he recognized immediately, the USS Phantom, its stealth systems partially disabled to present a united front with the rest of the fleet. A fierce grin spread across Carl's face as he surveyed the newly reinforced battlefield. The tide was turning, but the war was far from won. As a combined human fleet engaged the reeling Iconian forces, Carl knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of Earth and humanity as a whole. "All hands," he called out, his voice steady and determined. "Let's show these Iconians what happens when they pick a fight with Earth. For humanity." The Defiance surged forward, joining formation with the Earth fleet as they pressed their advantage against the faltering Iconian invasion force. The combined human fleet pressed its advantage against the faltering Iconian forces, but Carl knew the real test was yet to come. As the Defiance maneuvered through the chaos of battle, his tactical display lit up with new alerts. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "incoming transmission from Earth Command." Major Hawkins' face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of urgency and dedication. "Sullivan, we've got multiple situations developing. Colonel Volkov has neutralized the planet killer on the moon and is pushing towards an Iconian shipyard. We need you to join the larger battle near Earth. Use your FDL drive to get into position behind the main Iconian fleet." Carl nodded, his mind already racing with tactical possibilities. "Understood. Sir, we're on our way." As the transmission ended, Carl turned to his crew. Martinez, plot a series of short-range FDL jumps. We need to get behind that fleet without being detected. The Defiance's hybrid FDL drive hummed to life, propelling them through a series of rapid jumps. Each leap brought them closer to Earth, the blue-green orb growing larger in their view screen. As they approached their final position, Carl opened a secure channel to the USS Phantom. "Captain Clark, this is Sullivan. We're in position for a surprise attack on the Iconian rear guard. Ready when you are." Clark's voice crackled through the calm. "Copy that, Sullivan. Let's give these bastards a nasty surprise." The two ships coordinated their assault, emerging from stealth to unleash a devastating barrage on the unsuspecting Iconian ships. Energy beams and missiles tore through the alien vessel's aft shields, causing explosions to blossom in the vacuum of space. As the battle raged, Carl's tactical officer shouted over the din of the bridge, "Sir, we're picking up strange readings from the Iconian fleet. Some of their ships are firing on each other." Carl watched in astonishment as the Iconian formation began to break apart, ships turning their weapons on their former allies. The rebel faction that had aided them earlier seemed to be fracturing, with some pushing for full support of the human defenders, while others sought a diplomatic solution. Seizing the opportunity, Carl ordered the Defiance to press their attack, targeting the Iconian command ships to further disrupt their chain of command. As they fought, he noticed new contacts appearing on his tactical display, the full might of Earth's FDL fleet joining the fray. The EFS Humanity's Hope led the charge, flanked by its sister ships Resilience and Defiant. These newly completed vessels moved with surprising agility, their captains employing unconventional tactics to outmaneuver the larger Iconian warships. In the midst of the chaos, Carl received another transmission from Major Hawkins. "Sullivan, we've got a potential game-changer. Dr. Frost has found a way to broadcast the cognitive disruptor directly to Iconian neural implants. We need you to create a diversion while Colonel Volkov's team deploys the broadcast from a captured Iconian stealth ship." Carl's mind raced, quickly formulating a plan. "Understood. Sir will give them a diversion they won't forget." He turned to his crew, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "All hands, prepare for a high-risk maneuver. We're going to punch straight through the heart of the Iconian fleet." The Defiance's engines roared to life, propelling them towards the densest concentration of enemy ships. Carl barked orders as they weaved through the battlefield, their weapons blazing at every opportunity. Martinez, full power to forward shields. Tactical, target their propulsion systems. We want to create as much chaos as possible. The ship shuddered under enemy fire, but the crew held firm, executing Carl's orders with precision. As they tore through the Iconian formation, alarms blared across the bridge. "Sir," the tactical officer shouted, "we're detecting a massive energy buildup from one of the Iconian command ships. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." Carl's blood ran cold as he realized the implications. The Iconians were preparing to use their superweapon, a last-ditch effort to turn the tide of the battle. As the Defiance continued its wild charge through the enemy fleet, Carl knew that the next few moments would determine the fate of Earth and countless lives across the galaxy. The success of their diversion and Volkov's mission to deploy the cognitive disruptor broadcast had never been more crucial. With enemy fire pounding their shields and the threat of an unimaginable weapon looming, Carl gripped his command chair and prepared to push the Defiance and its crew to their very limits. The final act of this desperate battle was about to unfold, and humanity's future hung in the balance. Balance. The ship's sensors blared with new warnings as the Iconian superweapon began to power up, its energy signature unlike anything they had encountered before. "All hands, brace for impact." Carl shouted as the Defiance shuddered under a barrage of enemy fire. The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as damage reports flooded in from across the ship. Suddenly, a priority transmission cut through the chaos. Major Hawkins' face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but determined. "Sullivan, change of plans. We need you to abandon your current maneuver and join the assault on the Iconian flagship. They're powering up a superweapon that could render Earth uninhabitable. You're our best shot at stopping them." Carl's mind raced, quickly assessing the new situation. "Understood. Sir, we're on it." As the Defiance altered course, Carl noticed strange behavior among the Iconian ships. Several vessels drifted out of formation, their movements erratic and uncoordinated. Before he could process this development, his tactical officer called out, "Sir, we're detecting a massive explosion near the edge of the Iconian fleet." Carl's eyes widened as he saw the aftermath of the blast on his display. The explosion had created a significant breach in the enemy formation, and human ships were already moving to exploit it. "It's Volkov," Carl realized aloud. He must have deployed the cognitive disruptor. The effects of the device were immediately apparent. Iconian ships across the battlefield began to lose cohesion, their crews visibly struggling to maintain control. Carl seized the opportunity, barking orders to his crew. "Helm, plot a course through that breach. Weapons, target any ships that try to close the gap. We're going straight for that flagship." The Defiant surged forward, its hybrid engines pushing to their limits. As they penetrated deeper into the Iconian fleet, Carl caught glimpses of the chaos unfolding around them. Through the view screen, he saw Iconian vessels firing on each other, their crews seemingly unable to distinguish friend from foe. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're picking up distress signals from a cluster of escape pods. It's Colonel Volkov and his team." Carl gritted his teeth, torn between the need to rescue their allies and the urgency of their primary mission. "Mark their position and send it to the nearest friendly ship. We can't divert now." As they approached the Iconian flagship, the full scale of the threat became clear. The massive vessel dwarfed everything around it, its hull jam-packed with weapon emplacements. At its core, a pulsing energy signature grew stronger by the second. All power to forward shields. Carl ordered as they closed in, "Tactical, focus fire on their weapon systems. We need to buy ourselves some time." The Defiance unleashed a barrage of fire, its weapons enhanced by reverse-engineered Iconian technology. Energy beams lanced out, striking the flagship's shields with devastating force. But the alien vessel's defenses held, its return fire rattling the human ship to its core. Carl watched as other human vessels joined the assault, coordinating their attacks to probe for weaknesses in the flagship's defenses. The EFS Humanity's Hope led a wing of fighters on a strafing run, drawing fire away from the larger ships. Despite their efforts, the superweapon's energy signature continued to build. Carl knew they were running out of time. "Engineering, I need options." He shouted over the din of battle. "How do we shut that thing down?" His chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm, strained but determined. "Sir, if we can get close enough, we might be able to use our gravity generators to disrupt the weapon's power core. But we'd have to drop our shields to divert enough power." Carl weighed the risks, knowing that such a maneuver could very well be suicide. But as he looked at the image of Earth on his display, he knew they had no choice. "Do it," he ordered. "Helm, take us in. Evasive pattern Delta. We'll only get one shot at this." The Defiance dug towards the Iconian flagship, weaving through a storm of enemy fire. Alarms blared as their shields dropped, leaving them vulnerable to the onslaught. Carl felt the ship shudder with each impact, systems failing across the board. "We're in range," his tactical officer shouted. "Activating gravity generators now." The ship's gravity generators pulsed, sending waves of distorted space-time towards the Iconian vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a brilliant flash, the flagship's power core destabilized. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull as systems overloaded. Direct hit. Carl's tactical officer cheered. Their weapon systems are offline. But their victory was short-lived. As the Iconian flagship began to break apart, its failing systems triggered a cascade of explosions. The Defiance, shields still down and systems damaged, was caught in the blast wave. Carl was thrown from his chair as the ship tumbled end over end, artificial gravity failing. Through the chaos, he saw the rest of the human fleet pressing their advantage, tearing into the disoriented Iconian forces. As emergency systems kicked in and the Defiance began to stabilize, Carl knew the battle was not nearly finished. The Iconian superweapon had been neutralized, but at a tremendous cost. With his ship badly damaged and enemy forces still outnumbering them, he realized that the true test of humanity's determination was just beginning. Pulling himself back into his command chair, Carl opened a channel to what remained of his crew. "All hands, damage report. We're not out of this fight yet." "Yet," Carl announced, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Engineering, I need a status report on our systems. How long until we're combat ready?" The chief engineer's voice crackled through the comm, strained but determined. "We've got multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 5. Shields are at 12% and climbing slowly. Weapon systems are operational, but we're down to 60% power. Give us 10 minutes, and we'll be back in the fight, sir." Carl nodded, his mind already racing with tactical possibilities. "Make it 5. We don't have a moment to spare." As the Defiance's crew worked feverishly to restore their systems, Carl observed the battlefield through the main view screen. The human fleet was pressing its advantage, tearing into the disoriented Iconian forces with renewed vigor. But the aliens were far from defeated, and Carl knew they needed to act fast to capitalize on their momentum. A priority transmission cut through the din of damage reports and repair updates. Major Hawkins' face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of purpose and urgency. "Sullivan, we've got a critical situation. The Iconian flagship is housing a superweapon capable of rendering Earth uninhabitable. We need you to lead a strike force and take it out." Carl's teeth gritted as he processed the information. "Understood. Sir, we'll need a few minutes to get back to full fighting strength, but we're on it." As the transmission ended, Carl turned to his tactical officer. "Status on the rest of our strike group?" "The Dauntless and Valiant are reporting minimal damage. Sir, they're standing by for your orders." Carl nodded, formulating a plan. "Tell them to form up on our position. We're going to punch straight through their lines and hit that flagship hard." As the Defiance's systems came back online, Carl noticed a cluster of escape pods on his tactical display. His communications officer called out, "Sir, we're picking up distress signals from those pods." "It's Colonel Volkov and his team." Carl's mind raced, weighing the urgency of their primary mission against the need to rescue their allies. Before he could make a decision, Major Hawkins' voice came through again. "Sullivan, I'm dispatching a rapid response unit from the EFS Resilience to retrieve Volkov's team. Stay focused on the flagship." "Copy that, sir," Carl replied, relieved that he wouldn't have to abandon his comrades. With the Defiance's systems restored to fighting capacity, Carl ordered his strike force into action. The 3 human ships formed a tight formation, their engines flaring as they accelerated towards the heart of the Iconian fleet. "Evasive pattern Delta," Carl commanded as they entered the fray. "Martinez, keep us moving. Don't give them a stationary target." The Defiance weaved through the battlefield, narrowly avoiding energy beams and projectiles from the Iconian vessels that remained operational. Carl watched as human fighters swarmed around the larger alien ships, exploiting gaps in their defenses created by the cognitive disruptor's lingering effects. As they closed in on the Iconian flagship, Carl felt the Defiant shudder under a barrage of enemy fire. "Shields holding at 68%, sir," his tactical officer reported. "The flagship's defensive systems are more robust than we anticipated." Carl gritted his teeth, knowing they needed a new approach. "Comms, patch me through to the Dauntless and Valiant. We need to adjust our strategy." Once connected, Carl laid out his plan. "Dauntless, Valiant, I need you to create a diversion. Hit their starboard flank hard. Draw their fire away from us. We're going for their primary hangar." As the other ships peeled off to engage the flagship's escort vessels, Carl focused on piloting the Defiance towards their target. The massive Iconian vessel loomed before them, its hull filled with weapon emplacements. "Sir," his engineer called out, "I've been analyzing their shield harmonics. If we modulate our hybrid drive just right, we might be able to slip past their force fields." "Do it," Carl ordered without hesitation. The Defiance's engines hummed with a new intensity as they approached the hangar bay. For a moment, Carl held his breath, unsure if their gambit would pay off. Then, with a flicker of energy, they passed through the Iconian shields and into the cavernous hangar. The sudden intrusion caught the Iconian crew off guard. Alarms blared throughout the flagship as Carl and his team prepared for boarding action. "All hands, prepare for close-quarters combat," he announced over the ship-wide comm. "We're taking this fight to them." As Carl led his team of elite soldiers out of the Defiance and into the Iconian ship, he could hear the sounds of battle raging outside. The EFS Humanity's Hope and its sister ships were engaging the remaining Iconian capital ships, preventing them from coming to the flagship's aid. The human boarding party encountered fierce resistance as they pushed deeper into the alien vessel. Energy weapons flashed in the dimly lit corridors as Carl's team fought their way towards the superweapons control center. "This way," Carl shouted, gesturing down a side passage. If this ship's layout is anything like the Defiance, the main power conduits should lead us straight to the weapon systems. As they battled through the ship's interior, Carl couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the weight of that responsibility pressed down on him with each step. Suddenly, his tactical officer called out, "Captain, I'm picking up a massive energy signature ahead. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Carl's blood ran cold as they rounded the corner and entered a vast chamber. Before them stood a colossal structure, at its heart a swirling vortex of darkness that seemed to devour light itself. "My God!" Carl whispered, realizing they were facing something far beyond their expectations. "It's not just a weapon. It's a black hole." As his team stared in awe at the captive singularity, Carl knew that the true test of their skills and courage was only just beginning. The clock was ticking, and they needed to find a way to neutralize this incomprehensible threat before it was too late. As Carl and his team stared at the swirling vortex of darkness, the gravity of their situation became clear. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a contained singularity capable of unimaginable destruction. "We need to shut this down now," Carl ordered, snapping his team out of their stunned silence. "Fan out and find the control systems." But before they could move, a hissing sound filled the air. Dense, greenish gas began pouring from vents in the walls and ceiling, quickly filling the chamber. "Helmets on! Seal your suits!" Carl shouted, recognizing the threat instantly. His experience with Iconian technology told him this was likely a neural suppressant designed to incapacitate intruders. "Adjust your filters to maximum scrubbing. We can't let this slow us down." The team complied swiftly, their training kicking in. As the gas swirled around them, Carl felt a momentary wave of dizziness before his suit's systems compensated. He blinked away the disorientation, refocusing on the task at hand. "Sir, we've got incoming," his tactical officer warned, gesturing to a series of doors sliding open around the chamber's perimeter. Carl's eyes narrowed as he saw what emerged. These weren't standard Iconian troops. They were advanced battle droids, their metallic bodies gleaming with energy shields. Each one carried weapons that hummed with power, clearly designed for close-quarters combat. "Form up, back to back," Carl commanded, raising his own weapon. "Use the terrain to your advantage. They may be tough, but they're not as agile as we are." The chamber erupted into chaos as the human soldiers engaged the Iconian droids. Energy beams crisscrossed the space, leaving scorch marks on the walls and floor. Carl ducked behind a control console, popping up to fire precise shots at the droids' weak points. "Aim for the joints," he called out, noticing how the droids' shields flickered when they moved. "Their defenses aren't perfect." As the battle raged, Carl's calm crackled to life. Major Hawkins' voice cut through the din. "Sullivan, we've got new intel. Dr. Frost has found a weakness in the weapon's design. A targeted EMP could disrupt the containment field, causing implosion." Carl dove to avoid a droid's energy blast, rolling to his feet before responding. "Understood. So what's the catch?" "The gravitational disturbance would be massive. Anything too close when it goes off won't survive. We're pulling back the fleet now." Carl gritted his teeth, weighing their options as he fired another burst at an approaching droid. "Copy that. We'll find a way to trigger it and get out." Just then, a new voice joined the channel, Colonel Volkov. "Sullivan, we've breached the ship through a weak point in their shields. My team is heading for a secondary control room. We'll try to disrupt their systems from there." "Good to hear your voice, Volkov," Carl replied, relief evident in his tone. "We could use the assist. We're pinned down in the main control center." As if on cue, a series of explosions rocked the flagship. Alarms blared, and the Iconian droids faltered, their coordinated assault disrupted by the chaos Volkov's team had unleashed. Carl seized the opportunity. "Push forward," he shouted to his team. "We need to reach those controls." They surged ahead, taking advantage of the droids' momentary confusion. Carl vaulted over a fallen enemy, landing beside what appeared to be the main control panel for the superweapon. Before he could begin working, an imposing figure stepped out from behind the swirling vortex of the contained black hole. Commander Kryax, flanked by his elite guard, raised a clawed hand. "You're too late, humans," the Iconian leader snarled, his voice filled with both rage and desperation. "If we cannot have your world, no one will." Kryax slammed his hand down on a series of controls. The vortex at the center of the chamber began to pulse, its energies building to a crescendo. Carl's mind raced. They were out of time. The weapon was powering up, and Earth hung in the balance. As he prepared to make a final, desperate assault on Kryax and his guards, he knew that the next few moments would decide the fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire galaxy. In that instant, Carl made his decision. "Everyone, back to the Defiance. Now!" he shouted, firing a burst at Kryax to keep the Iconian leader pinned down. His team reacted instantly, providing covering fire as they retreated towards their ship. Carl's fingers flew over the control panel, initiating the EMP sequence. The vortex's pulsing increased in intensity, the contained black hole straining against its bonds. As Carl turned to run, Kryax lunged forward with inhuman speed. "You'll die with us, human," the Iconian snarled, his claws raking across Carl's suit. Carl stumbled, feeling the suit's integrity alarms blare. He spun, driving his elbow into Kryax's midsection. The Iconian commander doubled over, giving Carl the opening he needed to break free. "Volkov, we need extraction now." Carl gasped into his calm as he sprinted towards the Defiance. The ship's engines were already powering up, ready for a quick escape. "On our way, Sullivan," Volkov's gruff voice replied. "Stand by for pickup." Carl and his team had barely made it back to the Defiance when the deck beneath them shuddered. The Iconian flagship's internal gravity began to fluctuate wildly as the contained singularity destabilized. All hands brace for impact. Carl ordered as he strapped himself into the command chair. The Defiance's engines roared to life, pushing against the increasing gravitational pull. Through the view screen, Carl watched as fissures of crackling energy spread across the Iconian flagship's hull. The superweapon was imploding, tearing the massive vessel apart from the inside. Suddenly, a sleek ship appeared alongside the Defiance. "This is the USS Phantom." A voice crackled over the comm. "Captain Clark here. We're your ride out of this mess, Sullivan." "Much obliged, Clark," Carl replied, relief evident in his voice. "Initiating docking procedures now." As the two ships connected, Carl felt the Phantom's more powerful engines kick in. The combined vessels strained against the growing gravitational disturbance, inching away from the dying Iconian flagship. Once aboard the Phantom, Carl joined Volkov and Clark on the bridge. The view screen showed the horrifying yet mesmerizing sight of the Iconian superweapon collapsing in on itself. "We're not out of the woods yet," Clark grimaced, his hands dancing over the controls. "That singularity is playing havoc with local space-time. We need to plot a course out of here, fast." Carl and Volkov exchanged glances, then moved to assist. "If we can't go straight," Carl mused, studying the sensor readouts, "maybe we can go around." Volkov nodded, catching on. "A slingshot maneuver. Use the gravitational forces to our advantage." Clark's eyes lit up. "Brilliant. Let's do it." The Phantom's hybrid engines pushed to their limits as Clark executed the daring maneuver. The ship rolled and banked, riding the edge of the gravitational wave. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if they might be pulled back in. Then, with a final surge of power, they broke free. Behind them, the Iconian flagship disappeared in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave rippled through space, catching the nearby Iconian vessels unprepared. Carl watched as enemy ships spun out of control, their hulls buckling under the strain. "My God!" Volkov muttered, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Look at their fleet. It's in chaos." Carl nodded grimly. "And it's about to get worse for them. Major Hawkins isn't one to waste an opportunity like this." As if on cue, the comm system crackled to life. "This is Major Hawkins to all ships. The Iconian fleet is in disarray. Press the attack. Let's end this here and now." The human fleet surged forward, capitalizing on the confusion among the Iconian forces. Energy beams and projectiles crisscrossed space as the battle resumed with renewed intensity. "Sir," Clark called out, his voice tense. "We've got a problem. The EFS Humanity's Hope took heavy damage from that shockwave. Their port side is exposed." Carl leaned forward, studying the tactical display. "Can we provide support?" Clark shook his head. "Negative. Our engines are overtaxed from the escape. We'd never make it in time." Suddenly, a new signal cut through the comm chatter. "This is Commander Vexlor of the Iconian Empire. All loyal forces, rally to me. We will crush these human vermin once and for all." Carl's blood ran cold as he watched a portion of the Iconian fleet begin to regroup. "Clark, get us back to the Defiance. We need to rejoin this fight." As the Phantom maneuvered towards the Defiance's position, Carl couldn't shake the feeling that despite their recent victory, the true test was yet to come. The battle for Earth had entered a new, unpredictable phase, and humanity would need every ounce of skill and tenacity to emerge victorious. Victorious! The battle for Earth's future raged on, with both sides locked in a desperate struggle for supremacy. As Carl Sullivan watched the chaos unfold before him, Major Hawkins' voice crackled through the comm system once more. "Sullivan, Volkov, I need you both on the Phantom. We've got a critical mission that could turn the tide of this war. Understood, sir, Karl replied, exchanging a quick glance with Volkov. We're on our way. As they made their way back to the Phantom, Karl's mind raced with possibilities. What could be so important that Hawkins would pull them from the front lines? Once aboard, Captain Clark greeted them with a grim nod. Gentlemen, we've received some intel that you need to see. Clark led them to the ship's tactical room, where a holographic display flickered to life. It showed a massive space station orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa, its surface filled with weapons and defensive systems. This, Clark said, gesturing to the image, is Commander Vexlor's mobile command center. Our intelligence suggests it's the nerve center of their entire operation in our solar system. Karl leaned in, studying the station's layout. And our mission? Hawkins' voice joined the conversation through a secure channel. Your mission, gentlemen, is to infiltrate that station and neutralize it. With Vexlor's command center out of commission, we can disrupt their entire chain of command. Volkov stroked his chin thoughtfully. It won't be easy. That station looks like a fortress. That's why we're sending our best, Hawkins replied. You'll have whatever resources you need. This could be our chance to strike a decisive blow against the Iconians. As Karl and Volkov began formulating their plan, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Clark's fingers danced across a nearby console, his face paling as he read the incoming data. We've got a problem, he announced. Vexlor's forces have launched a new offensive. They're targeting key infrastructure on Earth's surface. The holographic display shifted, showing multiple red dots appearing across a map of Earth. One in particular caught Karl's attention, a power generation facility in the Midwest United States. Hawkins' voice cut through the tension. I'm deploying specialized teams to defend our critical sites. Sullivan, Volkov, I need you to stay focused on your mission. We can't let Vexlor's command center continue coordinating these attacks. As Karl and Volkov nodded their understanding, the ship's communication officer interrupted. Sir, we're picking up a transmission from Project Prometheus. It's Dr. Frost. She says it's urgent. The holographic display flickered once more, revealing the face of Dr. Emily Frost. Despite the clear exhaustion in her eyes, there was an unmistakable glimmer of excitement. Major Hawkins, Captain Sullivan, she began, her words tumbling out in a rush. We've done it. We've found a way to detect the Iconian stealth fighters. Karl felt a surge of hope. The nearly invisible Iconian craft had been a thorn in their side since the invasion began. How? He asked, leaning forward. We've developed a new type of sensor array, Dr. Frost explained. It can detect the minute gravitational distortions caused by the stealth fighter's mass. It's not perfect, but it's a game changer. Hawkins' voice was filled with renewed energy. Excellent work, Dr. Frost. Begin integrating this technology into our ships and defense systems immediately. As the transmission ended, Karl turned to Volkov. This changes things. If we can neutralize their stealth advantage. Volkov nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. We might just have a chance after all. Their planning session was interrupted once more as Captain Clark received another urgent transmission. His expression grew grave as he listened to the message. Sir, he said, addressing Karl and Volkov, long-range sensors have detected a substantial Iconian fleet entering the solar system. It's led by an Admiral Zherkath. Karl's heart sank. More Iconian reinforcements were the last thing they needed. But before he could voice his concerns, Clark continued. There's more. Major Hawkins is dispatching a diplomatic team to make contact with Admiral Zherkath. Apparently, there's reason to believe he might be open to negotiations. Volkov raised an eyebrow. A diplomatic mission? In the middle of all this? Karl understood the colonel's skepticism, but he also recognized the potential. If they could turn even a portion of the Iconian forces to their side, it could shift the balance of power dramatically. We can't afford to pass up any opportunity, Carl said. But our mission remains the same. We need to take out Vexlor's command center. As they resumed their planning, Carl couldn't shake the feeling that they were approaching a tipping point in the conflict. The next few days would likely determine the fate of Earth and perhaps the entire galaxy. With rekindled drive, Carl and Volkov pored over the schematics of Vexlor Space Station, searching for any weakness they could exploit. Time was running short, and failure was not an option. As they worked, the Phantom sped towards Jupiter, carrying them towards what promised to be one of the most crucial missions of the war. As they worked, the Phantom sped towards Jupiter, carrying them towards what promised to be one of the most crucial missions of the conflict. Captain Clark's voice crackled over the intercom, interrupting their planning session. Sullivan, Volkov, we're approaching Europa. Initiating stealth protocols now. Carl felt a subtle shift as the Phantom's experimental cloaking technology engaged. The ship's hybrid systems, combining captured Iconian tech with human ingenuity, hummed to life. On the display, the massive form of Jupiter loomed, its swirling storms a stark backdrop to the icy moon they were rapidly approaching. Cloaking stable, reported the ship's engineer. Sensor jammers online and functioning within parameters. Volkov nodded approvingly. Let's hope Dr. Frost's team outdid themselves this time. We'll need every advantage to slip past Vexlor's defenses. As they drew closer to Europa, the imposing silhouette of Vexlor's command station came into view. The structure was a marvel of Iconian engineering, jam-packed with weapons and shielded by overlapping energy fields. Its surface gleamed with an otherworldly iridescence, a stark contrast to the icy wasteland below. There's our target, Carl murmured, studying the station's layout one final time. Remember, our primary objective is to neutralize the command center. If we can disrupt their chain of command, we might just give our forces the opening they need. The Phantom glided silently through space, expertly navigating the outer defensive perimeter. Tense minutes passed as they held their breath, half expecting alarms to blare at any moment. But the Iconian sensors remained oblivious to their presence. We're in, Clark announced, a note of relief in his voice. Docking procedure initiated. As the Phantom latched onto an inconspicuous maintenance hatch, Carl and Volkov donned their newly modified combat suits. The armor incorporated Iconian materials, designed to help mask their life signs from internal sensors. Ready, Carl asked, checking his weapon one last time. Volkov nodded grimly. Let's end this. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped into the alien corridor. The interior of the station was a maze of sleek, curved surfaces and pulsing energy conduits. They moved swiftly and silently, guided by the intelligence gathered from previous encounters with Iconian technology. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with their first obstacle. A pair of Iconian battle droids stood guard, their metallic forms gleaming under the station's ethereal lighting. But these were unlike any droids they had encountered before. New model, Volkov whispered, his eyes narrowing. Look at that shielding. Carl raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the droid's shield shimmered to life. The energy barrier adapted instantly, creating a perfect defense against their conventional weapons. Damn, Carl muttered. We need a new plan. Thinking quickly, Carl spotted a maintenance panel nearby. He gestured to Volkov, and they retreated around the corner. Working swiftly, Carl pried open the panel and began manipulating the circuitry within. What are you doing? Volkov asked, keeping watch. A little trick I picked up from our tech team, Carl replied, his fingers dancing across the alien interface. If I can just... There. A moment later, a group of maintenance bots emerged from a nearby access hatch. Their programming altered. They swarmed towards the battle droids. The guard units, caught off guard by the unexpected assault, found their adaptive shields useless against the repurposed maintenance bots. As the droids were overwhelmed, Karl and Volkov slipped past, pressing deeper into the station. They encountered more of these new battle droids as they progressed, each time using their knowledge of Iconian systems to turn the station's own technology against its defenders. Meanwhile, on the edge of the solar system, Dr. Emily Frost stood aboard the modified shuttle, her heart pounding as she prepared to make first contact with Admiral Zherkath. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of the Iconian commander. "This is Dr. Emily Frost, representing the human diplomatic team," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "We request a face-to-face meeting to discuss the possibility of a ceasefire." Admiral Zherkath's multifaceted eyes studied her intently. After a tense moment, he replied, "Your request is granted, Dr. Frost. Prepare to board the Nebula's Fist." As the shuttle docked with a massive Iconian flagship, Dr. Frost steeled herself for what could be the most important conversation of her life. The fate of humanity might well rest on her ability to negotiate with this alien commander. Back on Earth, Sergeant Max Steele crouched behind a makeshift barricade, his eyes scanning the horizon. The Midwest Power Generation facility behind him hummed with activity as his team worked to keep the backup systems online. Suddenly, the sky lit up with a brilliant flash. Steele's comm unit crackled and died, along with every other piece of electronic equipment in the vicinity. "EMP," he shouted. "Switch to analog. Execute Plan B." His team sprang into action, years of training kicking in. They quickly began cranking up manually operated generators and setting up a network of signal flares and mirrors for communication. As the dust settled, Steele spotted the first wave of Iconian ground forces approaching. He raised his rifle, took aim, and prepared for the fight of his life. The battle for Earth's future raged on, with both sides locked in a desperate struggle for supremacy. Supremacy. As Steele steadied his aim, a brilliant flash illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening boom. The EMP had taken out their communications, but the analog backup systems were already kicking in. Meanwhile, deep within Vexlor's command station, Karl and Volkov pressed forward, their modified combat suits allowing them to slip past most of the Iconian defenses. They had made significant progress, but the real challenge lay ahead. As they approached the inner sanctum, Karl held up a hand, signaling Volkov to stop. "Wait," he whispered, pointing to a nearby console. "Look at these readings." Volkov leaned in, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. "It appears Vexlor has implemented some kind of failsafe," he muttered. "A dead man's switch linked to his vital signs." Karl's eyes hardened. "If we take him out, the whole station goes up. We need to change our approach." They quickly formulated a new plan, aiming to incapacitate rather than eliminate the Iconian commander. As they neared the command center, they encountered a group of the new battle droids. Karl tapped into a nearby maintenance panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface. Within moments, a swarm of reprogrammed maintenance bots flooded the corridor, overwhelming the droid's adaptive shields. In the ensuing chaos, Karl and Volkov slipped past, finally reaching the heart of Vexlor's operations. The command center was a marvel of Iconian technology, pulsing with energy and information. At its center stood Vexlor, his imposing form radiating an aura of malevolence. Before the Iconian commander could react, Karl and Volkov sprang into action. They deployed a modified stun grenade, calibrated to Iconian physiology. The device detonated, flooding the room with a blinding light and disorienting sonic pulse. Vexlor staggered, his defenses momentarily lowered. Karl seized the opportunity, firing a specially designed tranquilizer round. The dart found its mark, and the Iconian commander collapsed to the floor. Secure him, Karl ordered, as Volkov moved to restrain their unconscious target. We need to disable that dead man switch and take control of the station. As they worked to neutralize the immediate threat, the battle for Earth's future continued to rage across multiple fronts. In the depths of space, Dr. Emily Frost found herself face-to-face with Admiral Zherkath aboard the Iconian flagship, Nebula's Fist. The tension in the air was palpable as she presented her case for a ceasefire. "Admiral," she began, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "I have evidence of Vexlor's atrocities, not just against humanity, but against your own people as well." Zherkath's multifaceted eyes studied her intently as she laid out her argument, presenting data and footage that painted a damning picture of Vexlor's actions. As the presentation concluded, the Iconian Admiral remained silent for a long moment. "Your evidence is compelling, Dr. Frost," he finally said, his voice a low rumble. "I have long harbored doubts about Vexlor's methods. Perhaps it is time for a change in our approach." With those words, a formal alliance began to take shape. Zherkath provided crucial intelligence on Iconian fleet movements and weaknesses in their planetary defense systems. This information was immediately relayed to Major John Hawkins, who began formulating plans to exploit these vulnerabilities. Back on Earth, Sergeant Max Steele and his unit faced a renewed Iconian assault at the Midwest Power Facility. The invaders had deployed a massive electromagnetic pulse generator mounted on a hovering platform. If activated, it could disable the power grid across a vast area. Steele knew they had to act fast. "Alpha Team with me," he barked, selecting a small group of his most skilled operatives. "We're going to take out that EMP generator before it can fire." Equipped with the newly developed portable stealth fighter detectors, Steele's team navigated through the chaos of the battlefield. They moved swiftly and silently, avoiding detection by the Iconian forces. As they approached the EMP platform, Steele signaled his team to spread out. "Plant the charges on the stabilizers," he ordered. "We'll bring this thing down before they can use it." His team worked with precision, placing explosive charges at key points on the platform. As the last charge was set, Steele activated the detonator. The resulting explosion sent the EMP generator crashing to the ground, erupting in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Above the Earth, the EFS Phoenix continued its offensive against the Iconian EMP satellite network. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge, watching as his crew systematically neutralized the orbital threats. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've successfully deactivated 60% of the EMP satellites. Earth's orbital defenses are coming back online." Martinez nodded, a grim smile on his face. "Excellent work, but stay alert. Our success is bound to draw attention." As if on cue, the ship's sensors lit up with multiple contacts. A significant portion of Vexlor's fleet had broken off to engage the Phoenix and its battle group. "All hands battle stations," Martinez commanded, his voice calm but resolute. "Looks like we've got company." As the space battle erupted around Earth's orbit, the various human operations continued to unfold. Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi Tanaka's Global Resistance Network coordinated rapid response teams, striking at Iconian supply lines and evacuating endangered communities. At Project Prometheus, Dr. Victor Raskov's breakthrough in reverse engineering Iconian propulsion technology promised to turn the tide of the war. As the prototype for the new drive system was rushed into production, Major Hawkins ordered its immediate implementation on a select group of human vessels. However, even as these victories accumulated, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Long-range sensors detected the approach of a massive Iconian reinforcement fleet, led by the infamous Grand Admiral Krell. In response to this impending danger, Major Hawkins initiated Operation Sunburst, a daring plan to unite all available human and allied Iconian forces for a decisive strike against Vexlor's remaining strongholds. As preparations for Operation Sunburst kicked into high gear, a new player entered the field. Major Dmitry Volkov, Colonel Alexei Volkov's older brother and a renowned expert in psychological warfare, was tasked with developing strategies to demoralize the remaining loyal Iconian forces and encourage further defections. Dmitry wasted no time in orchestrating a complex disinformation campaign. "We need to sow doubt and confusion among the enemy ranks," he explained to his team. "Spread rumors of internal conflicts and betrayals within the Iconian High Command. Make them question their loyalties." As Operation Sunburst approached its launch, the various human and allied forces moved into position. Sullivan and Colonel Alexei Volkov's team on Vexlor's command station prepared for their final move against the incapacitated Iconian commander. The EFS Phoenix and its battle group readied themselves for a major assault on the heart of Vexlor's fleet. On Earth, Sergeant Steele and his unit fortified their positions, bracing for what could be the final push to secure the planet's surface. Meanwhile, Dr. Frost and Admiral Zherkav worked tirelessly to consolidate their alliance and prepare diplomatic overtures to the approaching fleet led by Grand Admiral Krell. The stage was set for a conflict that would determine the fate of humanity. As the various fronts of Operation Sunburst prepared to engage, the tension was palpable. The success or failure of this daring plan would shape the course of the war, and potentially the future of both species involved. As the various fronts of Operation Sunburst engaged, the tension that had been building finally erupted into a furious storm of action. On Vexlor's command station orbiting Europa, Captain Carl Sullivan and Colonel Alexei Volkov led their infiltration team through the final stretch of their mission. The reprogrammed maintenance bots swarmed ahead, creating a chaotic distraction that allowed the team to slip past the last line of defenses. As they breached the heavily fortified command center, they came face to face with Vexlor himself. The Iconian commander's eyes blazed with fury as he activated a personal energy shield, his hands flying over the station's control panels. "You're too late," he snarled, his voice distorted by the shield's energy field. "This station will be your tomb." Sullivan's eyes darted around the room, quickly assessing the situation. He spotted a familiar configuration of power conduits leading to Vexlor's shield generator. "There," he shouted, pointing to a small device nestled in the corner. "Volkov, take out that generator." Without hesitation, Colonel Volkov raised his weapon. Time seemed to slow as he exhaled, steadied his aim, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, striking the generator with pinpoint accuracy. Sparks flew as the shield flickered and died. Vexlor lunged for the controls, but Sullivan was faster. He signaled to his team, who deployed the modified cognitive disruptor. A wave of energy washed over the Iconian commander, and he crumpled to the floor, unconscious but alive. "Secure him," Sullivan ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to disable that dead man switch and take control of this station." As Sullivan's team worked to neutralize the immediate threat on Europa, the battle raged across the solar system. The EFS Phoenix, under Captain Jake Martinez's command, spearheaded a massive assault on the heart of Vexlor's fleet. The Phoenix's hybrid weapon systems lit up the void of space, tearing through Iconian shields with devastating efficiency. Martinez stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as he barked out orders. "Helm, execute attack pattern Delta 7, he commanded. "Weapons, focus fire on their lead destroyer." The Phoenix responded like an extension of Martinez's will, weaving through enemy fire with impossible grace. It performed a series of high-speed attack runs, disrupting the Iconian fleet's formation and creating openings for the rest of the human battle group to exploit. On Earth, Sergeant Max Steele and his unit found themselves facing the fight of their lives. The Iconian forces, desperate to maintain their foothold, launched an all-out assault on the Midwest Power Facility. Steele's voice crackled over the comm as he coordinated with nearby resistance cells. Alpha Team, reinforce the western perimeter. Beta, I want those portable stealth detectors up and running now. The air filled with the sound of energy weapons and explosions as Iconian fighters strafed their positions. But thanks to the stealth detectors, Steele's forces were able to target and neutralize the enemy air support with uncanny precision. As the battle on Earth intensified, Major John Hawkins watched from his command center as Earth's orbital defenses came fully online. The remaining Iconian ships in low orbit began to pull back, creating an opportunity Hawkins had been waiting for. All units, this is Major Hawkins, he broadcast globally. Commence Operation Sunburst. I repeat, commence Operation Sunburst. Across the planet, Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi Tanaka's resistance network sprang into action. Underground command centers, linked by quantum-encrypted communications, coordinated simultaneous strikes against Iconian positions worldwide. In orbit, the newly upgraded EFS Thunderbolt streaked into the fray, its revolutionary propulsion system leaving a trail of blue fire in its wake. The ship's unprecedented speed and maneuverability caught the Iconian fleet off guard, providing a crucial edge in the space battle. Admiral Zerkatha's allied Iconian forces chose this moment to make their move. They launched a surprise attack on the flank of Vexlor's fleet, catching the enemy ships in a devastating crossfire. As the tide of battle turned, Major Dmitry Volkov's psychological warfare campaign began to bear fruit. Confusion spread through the Iconian ranks, with several enemy ships breaking formation in an attempt to defect. However, even as Operation Sunburst achieved significant victories, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Long-range sensors detected the advanced guard of Grand Admiral Krell's massive reinforcement fleet entering the outer reaches of the solar system. Dr. Emily Frost worked feverishly alongside Admiral Zerkath, preparing a diplomatic package to be transmitted to Krell's fleet. We need to make them understand, she said, her voice tense but determined. This could be our only chance to end this war without further bloodshed. As Frost and Zerkath finalized their diplomatic overture, a chilling development unfolded. The Iconian home world, monitoring the battle through their long-range communication network, activated a dormant protocol within their force's neural implants. Admiral Zerkatha's eyes widened in horror as he received reports of the change sweeping through his forces. Dr. Frost, he said urgently, we have a problem. The home world has activated the neural override protocol. Our allies, they're turning against us. Frost's face paled as she grasped the implications. She quickly opened a secure channel to Major Hawkins. Major, we have a critical situation. The Iconian neural implants have been compromised. We need a counter-strategy and fast. As the various elements of Operation Sunburst grappled with this new threat, the human forces found themselves racing against time. They had achieved significant victories, but the approach of Grand Admiral Krell's reinforcements and the activation of the neural override protocol threatened to undo everything they had fought for. The captured Vexlor, the success of the space battle, and the global counteroffensive on Earth had turned the tide in humanity's favor. But as the Iconian armada drew ever closer, the human forces and their remaining allies faced a daunting challenge. They needed to find a way to counter these new threats and consolidate their position before the arrival of Krell's fleet changed the course of the war once again. As the various elements of Operation Sunburst grappled with this new threat, Dr. Emily Frost's fingers flew across her console, frantically analyzing the incoming data on the neural override protocol. She turned to Admiral Zerkath, her eyes wide with urgency. We need to assemble a team immediately. Human and Iconian scientists working together might be our only chance to counter this. Admiral Zerkath nodded grimly, his mandibles clicking with tension. He began issuing rapid-fire orders to his remaining loyal officers, directing them to gather their top minds at the Project Prometheus facility. Meanwhile, on Vexlor's captured command station orbiting Europa, Captain Carl Sullivan and Colonel Alexei Volkov worked swiftly to secure their unconscious prisoner. Sullivan activated his comm link, his voice taut with controlled excitement. "Major Hawkins, we've got Vexlor. Initiating interrogation protocols now." As Volkov set up the necessary equipment, Sullivan began a methodical search of the command center's data banks. His eyes widened as he uncovered a trove of classified Iconian defense plans. "Volkov, take a look at this," he called out, gesturing to a holographic display of Mars. The colonel stepped closer, his brow furrowing as he studied the image. A hidden base? But why Mars? Sullivan zoomed in on the display, revealing a massive structure nestled within Olympus Mons. It's not just a base. It's a long-range communication array. If I'm reading this correctly, it's capable of coordinating the entire Iconian fleet in our solar system. Volkov whistled low. "That's a game-changer. We need to inform Hawkins immediately." In Earth orbit, the space around the EFS Phoenix erupted in chaos as allied Iconian ships suddenly turned their weapons on their former human compatriots. Captain Jake Martinez's voice cut through the cacophony of alarms on the bridge. "Evasive pattern Omega. Target engines and weapon systems only. We need to disable, not destroy." The Phoenix banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy weapons from a former ally. Martinez gripped his command chair, his squeezing hard as he watched the tactical display. "Communications. Broadcast on all frequencies. Remind our people that these Iconians are victims, not enemies. We need to hold the line until we find a solution." On the surface of Earth, Sergeant Max Steele's unit found themselves in a nightmarish scenario as their Iconian allies turned on them without warning. Steele's voice boomed across the Midwest Power Facility. "Charlie team, fall back to Sector 7. Delta, I want a perimeter established around our Iconian friendlies who are resisting this thing." He watched as a group of Iconian defectors struggled against invisible forces, their bodies convulsing as they fought the neural override. Steele made a split-second decision. All units switched to non-lethal tactics. Stun grenades and EMP charges only. We're going to confuse the hell out of them until we figure this out. At Project Prometheus, Dr. Victor Raskov emerged from the hangar bay, wiping grease from his hands. He approached Major Hawkins, who was coordinating the global response from a holographic command center. "Major, the upgrades are complete. Task Force Thunderbolt is ready for deployment." Hawkins nodded, his eyes never leaving the swirling holographic display of the solar system. "Excellent work, Doctor. I'm designating the EFS Thunderbolt as the flagship. Their first mission is critical. We've just received intel about a hidden Iconian base on Mars." As Hawkins relayed the orders to Task Force Thunderbolt, he turned to address another holographic image, that of Major Dmitry Volkov. "Major, I need your expertise. We're facing a neural override situation. Can you disrupt their network?" Volkov's eyes glinted with persistence. "Consider it done. Sir, I'll have my team broadcast a cocktail of conflicting commands and interference patterns. It won't stop the override, but it should buy us some time." As these events unfolded across the solar system, long-range sensors lit up with a terrifying new threat. The main body of Grand Admiral Krell's reinforcement fleet had entered the system, a vast armada of advanced Iconian warships that dwarfed anything humanity had faced before. Hawkins steeled himself, knowing that the next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. He opened a channel to Captain Elena Petrova, newly assigned commander of the EFS Thunderbolt. "Captain, I have a critical mission for you. We're activating Project Mjolnir." Petrova's eyes widened at the mention of the top-secret weapon. "The EMP generator? But, sir, it hasn't been fully tested." "We're out of options, Captain. Hawkins replied grimly. Your mission is to secure the Mars base and use its communication array to broadcast a countermeasure signal. Dr. Frost and her team are working on it now. Mjolnir is your ace in the hole. Use it to disable the Iconian defenses without destroying them. As Task Force Thunderbolt prepared for their assault on Mars, Dr. Frost's team achieved a breakthrough. We've done it, she exclaimed, holding up a data chip. This signal should disrupt the neural implants without causing permanent damage. But we'll need to broadcast it from multiple locations to cover the entire system. Admiral Zerkath studied the data, his alien features unreadable. It's our best chance. We must get this to Major Hawkins immediately. But even as hope blossomed, a new crisis emerged. The long-range sensors focused on Mars picked up a massive energy spike. The hidden base had activated its communication array, broadcasting a signal that intensified the neural override effect across the system. In the midst of this chaos, Task Force Thunderbolt approached the Red Planet, the EFS Thunderbolt at its head. Captain Petrova stood on the bridge, her voice steady as she addressed her crew. This is it, people. Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment. Prepare for atmospheric entry. Weapon systems. Stand by to deploy Mjolnir on my mark. As the ships of Task Force Thunderbolt streaked through the Martian atmosphere, the rest of the human fleet, along with Admiral Zerkatha's loyal forces, moved to intercept Grand Admiral Krell's approaching armada. The solar system was about to become the stage for the largest and most desperate battle in human history. As the EFS Thunderbolt pierced the Martian atmosphere, Captain Elena Petrova's eyes narrowed, focused on the holographic display of Olympus Mons. The massive volcano loomed before them, concealing the Iconian base within its ancient caldera. All ships, commence attack pattern Delta, Petrova ordered, her voice steady despite the tension. Strafing runs on outer defenses. Remember, we need that base intact. The smaller ships of Task Force Thunderbolt broke formation, their engines flaring as they accelerated towards the target. Laser fire erupted from concealed emplacements on the volcano's slopes, filling the sky with deadly beams of energy. Evasive maneuvers, shouted Commander Rodriguez, Petrova's second-in-command. The bridge crew worked furiously, guiding the Thunderbolt through a series of tight turns and rolls. As the first wave of attacks struck the Iconian defenses, explosions blossomed across the Martian landscape. Sensor arrays crumbled and weapon emplacements went dark, their operators struggling against the intensified neural override signal. Ground teams, prepare for deployment, Petrova commanded, her finger hovering over the launch controls. Major Graves, you have a go. In the Thunderbolt's hangar bay, Major Marcus Graves performed a final check on his exosuit. The veteran soldier's scarred face was set in stubborn persistence as he addressed his assault team. Listen up. We're dropping into hell. Use the terrain for cover and watch for AA fire. Our objective is the control center. Failure is not an option. The dropship bay doors opened, revealing the rust-red Martian surface far below. Graves led the charge, leaping into the void as anti-aircraft fire streaked past. The dropships weaved and dodged, using the rugged landscape to their advantage. Incoming, Graves shouted as a plasma bolt struck nearby, showering his team with superheated rock. Push forward. We need to secure that landing zone. Back in Earth orbit, the space around the planet had transformed into a maelstrom of light and fire. Captain Jake Martinez gritted his teeth as the EFS Phoenix shuddered under enemy fire. Target Krell's flagship, Martinez ordered, his hands gripping the arms of his command chair. Concentrate all hybrid weapons on their port shield generator. The Phoenix's experimental weapons lashed out, carving furrows in the massive Iconian vessel's energy shields. For a moment, it seemed as if they might break through, but then a wave of enemy fighters swarmed towards them. Evasive action, Martinez called out, but he knew they were outgunned and outnumbered. The battle was slipping away from them with each passing second. On Earth's surface, Sergeant Max Steele watched with a heavy heart as his Iconian allies writhed in agony, their neural implants overriding their free will. He turned to his second-in-command, Corporal Chun. "Set up a containment field in Sector 9, Steele ordered. Use non-lethal force only. These are our friends, and we're going to get them back." As Steele's team worked to secure their former allies, Dr. Emily Frost's voice crackled over the comm system. "Sergeant, we've made a breakthrough. The countermeasure needs to be transmitted from the Martian base itself. We're sending the data now." Steele's mind raced. "Understood, Doctor. We'll hold the line here. Good luck." At Project Prometheus, Dr. Frost turned to Major Hawkins, her face pale but determined. "Sir, we need to get this information to Captain Petrova immediately. The entire mission depends on it." Hawkins nodded, his fingers flying over the communication console. "Petrova, this is Hawkins. Mission parameters have changed. Your primary objective is now to capture the control center for the communication array. We need to broadcast the countermeasure from there." On Mars, Petrova received the transmission just as her ship rocked from a near miss. "Understood, Major. Redirecting resources now." She opened a channel to Major Graves. "Graves, change of plans. We need that control center at all costs." Graves acknowledged the order as he led his team through a hail of enemy fire. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shake violently. "Seismic activity," one of his soldiers called out. "They're using some kind of subterranean defense system." Graves' mind worked quickly. "Jenkins, Carter, get those drills reconfigured. We're going to turn them into seismic disruptors. Move." As the ground forces adapted to the new threat, Petrova faced a critical decision in orbit. A massive wave of Iconian reinforcements approached from the outer system, threatening to cut off their assault. "Helm, bring us about," she ordered. "Prepare to activate Mjolnir." The experimental device hummed to life, sending out a massive electromagnetic pulse that engulfed the approaching Iconian fleet. Ships went dark, their systems overloaded by the burst of energy. But the victory was short-lived. Alarms blared across the Thunderbolt's bridge as the Mjolnir device began to overload. "Shut it down," Petrova shouted, but it was too late. The device exploded in a shower of sparks, leaving the Thunderbolt vulnerable. With the space around Mars temporarily cleared, Petrova knew they had to act fast. "All ships, provide air support for ground forces. We need to take that base now." As Task Force Thunderbolt redoubled its efforts on Mars, the situation in Earth orbit grew increasingly desperate. Grand Admiral Krell's flagship unleashed a weapon of terrifying power, an energy projector that cut through the human fleet like a scythe through wheat. Captain Martinez watched in horror as entire battle groups disappeared in flashes of blinding light. "We can't hold out much longer," he muttered, searching desperately for a solution. At that moment, a transmission from Major Hawkins reached him. "Martinez, we're deploying our ace in the hole. Commander Sarah Clark is inbound in a stealth ship carrying experimental nanite disruptors. Your job is to keep Krell distracted while she infiltrates his flagship." Martinez nodded grimly. "Understood, so we'll give them one hell of a show." As the Phoenix led a daring charge against Krell's forces, Commander Sarah Clark guided her stealth ship through the chaos of battle. Her mission: to infiltrate the Iconian flagship and deploy the nanite disruptors that could turn the tide of the entire war. Clark's hands were steady on the controls as she weaved through debris and weapons fire, her ship's advanced cloaking technology keeping her hidden from Iconian sensors. She knew that the fate of humanity and their Iconian allies rested on her shoulders. As she approached Krell's massive flagship, Clark took a deep breath. "Here goes nothing," she whispered, initiating the docking sequence that would bring her into the heart of the enemy vessel. The battle raged across the solar system, on Mars, in Earth orbit, and now within the very flagship of the Iconian fleet. The next few moments would determine the fate of two civilizations, with victory hanging by the thinnest of threads. Threads. Commander Sarah Clark's infiltration of Krell's flagship could turn the tide, but time was running out. On Mars, the situation was escalating rapidly. Major Marcus Graves and his ground teams pushed through the outer perimeter of the Iconian base, the air thick with laser fire and the acrid smell of burning metal. Graves ducked behind a twisted piece of machinery, his armor scorched and dented. "Jenkins, status on those mobile shield generators." He barked into his comm. "Online and operational, sir," came the reply. A shimmering blue field materialized in front of the advancing human forces, deflecting incoming fire. Graves nodded grimly. "All units advance. Keep it tight and watch your corners." The human soldiers moved forward in practice formation, their weapons at the ready. They encountered heavy resistance as they pushed deeper into the facility. Iconian defenders entrenched behind makeshift barricades. "Breaching team on me," Graves called out. He signaled to a group of soldiers carrying specialized equipment. "We're going to make our own door." As the team set up, explosions rocked the corridor. Graves glanced at his tactical display, noting the progress of other squads throughout the complex. They were making headway, but slowly. In Earth orbit, the space around the planet had become a graveyard of shattered ships and debris. Captain Jake Martinez gritted his teeth as the EFS Phoenix shuddered under another barrage from Krell's energy projector. "Evasive pattern Delta 3. Martinez shouted. "Weapons. Target their secondary power couplings." The Phoenix banked hard, narrowly avoiding a beam that would have cut the ship in half. Its own weapons lashed out, scoring hits against the Iconian flagship's hull. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Commander Clark's stealth ship has successfully docked with the enemy vessel." Martinez nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Good. Let's make sure she has the time she needs. All ships, concentrate fire on their starboard flank. Draw their attention." Aboard Krell's flagship, Commander Sarah Clark moved silently through the cavernous interior. Her stealth suit blended seamlessly with the shadows, its advanced technology keeping her hidden from Iconian sensors. She paused at a junction, consulting the ship's schematics on her heads-up display. Two routes lay before her, one leading to the main power core, the other to the central computer hub. Both were viable targets for the nanite disruptors, but she could only choose one. Clark weighed her options quickly. The power core would cripple the ship's offensive capabilities, but the computer hub could potentially disrupt the entire Iconian fleet's coordination. Time was of the essence. Making her decision, she moved swiftly down the chosen corridor, the fate of humanity resting in the small case strapped to her back. Back on Mars, Captain Elena Petrova stood on the bridge of the EFS Thunderbolt, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The disabled Iconian ships were coming back online faster than expected, their adaptive technology overcoming the effects of the Mjolnir device. "Engineering, I need options," Petrova demanded. Her chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, we might be able to reconfigure our shield emitters to create a localized electromagnetic disruption field. It won't be as powerful as Mjolnir, but it could buy us some time." Petrova nodded. "Do it. Helm, take us into low orbit. We need to provide close support for our ground teams." The Thunderbolt descended through the thin Martian atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot from the friction. As they approached the Iconian base, Petrova could see the flashes of weapons fire on the surface. "All batteries, suppressing fire on marked targets," she ordered. Let's give our people down there some breathing room. On Earth, Sergeant Max Steele and his unit were fighting a desperate holding action. The Iconian forces had renewed their assault on the Midwest Power Facility, determined to free their neural-overridden comrades. Steele ducked as a plasma bolt sizzled over his head, leaving a scorched mark on the concrete wall behind him. "Chen, how's that western perimeter looking?" "Holding for now, Sarge," Corporal Chen replied, her voice strained. "But they're throwing everything they've got at us." Steele nodded grimly. "Maintain fire discipline. Make every shot count." He switched channels on his comm. "Sniper team status?" "We've got overwatch on the main approach, Sergeant," came the comm reply. 3 tangos down in the last minute alone. As Steele coordinated his defense, a priority message came through from Dr. Emily Frost at Project Prometheus. He listened intently, his eyes widening at the implications. "Understood, Doctor," he said. "We'll hold the line here. Good luck." At Project Prometheus, Dr. Frost worked feverishly at her console, surrounded by holographic displays of data streaming in from across the solar system. Her breakthrough in understanding the Martian signal had provided a crucial piece of the puzzle. "Major Hawkins," she called out, "we need to get this information to Major Graves immediately. The quantum entanglement device in the Martian base is the key to amplifying the neural override signal." Hawkins nodded, his fingers flying over a communication panel. "Graves, this is Hawkins. New intel coming your way. Priority target identified within the facility." On Mars, Graves received the transmission as his team prepared to breach another security checkpoint. He quickly relayed the information to his tech specialists. "All right, people, change of plans," he announced. "We're splitting into 2 teams. Alpha team, with me, we're going for the main communication array. Beta team, find that quantum entanglement device and shut it down." As the human forces regrouped and pushed deeper into the Iconian base, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. A computerized voice echoed through the corridors in both Iconian and English. "Warning. Self-destruct sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately. Detonation in 15 minutes. Graves cursed under his breath. The mission had just become a race against time, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. He opened a channel to the Thunderbolt. "Captain Petrova, we've got a situation down here. The Iconians have activated a self-destruct sequence. We need options fast." In orbit, Petrova's mind raced. The Thunderbolt shields were already reconfigured into an electromagnetic disruptor, keeping the reactivating Iconian ships at bay. She made a split-second decision. "Graves, hold your position. We're coming to you." She turned to her helm officer. "Take us in. We're going to provide more than just air support." As the Thunderbolt descended towards the Martian surface, its massive form casting a shadow over the battlefield, a new threat emerged at the edge of the solar system. A colossal Iconian dreadnought, dwarfing even Krell's flagship, appeared in a flash of light. Major Hawkins, monitoring the situation from Earth, felt a chill run down his spine. He recognized the ship from intelligence briefings. It was the personal vessel of Fleet Admiral Zarthak, Supreme Commander of the Iconian War Fleet. With dogged persistence, Hawkins keyed in a series of complex codes, activating a system that had been hidden in plain sight for years. "This is Major Hawkins," he announced on a secure channel. "Initiating Protocol Omega. All hidden defense platforms in the asteroid belt. Power up and move to predetermined attack positions." Across the solar system, dormant installations hidden among the asteroids came to life. Their activation sent ripples of energy through space, detectable by both human and Iconian sensors. As the defense platforms began to move, their purpose still unclear to most, the multiple fronts of the battle reached critical moments simultaneously. On Mars, Graves and his team raced to secure the base before it self-destructed. In Earth orbit, Martinez and his fleet fought desperately against Krell's forces. Deep within the Iconian flagship, Commander Clark prepared to deploy her nanite disruptors. And now, with the arrival of Zarthak's dreadnought and the activation of Protocol Omega, the entire battlefield was about to be reshaped. The next few minutes would determine the fate of not just the solar system, but potentially the entire galaxy. The activation of Protocol Omega sent shockwaves through the solar system, reshaping the battlefield in an instant. Major Hawkins' voice crackled over the secure channel, reaching every human ship and installation. All units, this is Hawkins. Protocol Omega is now active. Asteroid belt defense platforms are coming online. Adjust your tactics accordingly. In Earth orbit, Captain Jake Martinez watched as his tactical display lit up with new friendly signals. The hidden platforms emerged from their camouflage, their energy signatures growing stronger by the second. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "new orders from Major Hawkins. We're to break off our engagement with Krell's flagship and rendezvous with the nearest defense platform cluster." Martinez nodded, his mind already racing through the tactical implications. "Helm, plot an intercept course. Weapons, lay down suppressing fire as we disengage." The Phoenix banked hard, its engines flaring as it accelerated away from the Iconian flagship. Krell's vessel fired a parting salvo, energy beams lancing through space where the Phoenix had been moments before. On Mars, the situation grew increasingly desperate. Major Marcus Graves led his team through the twisting corridors of the Iconian base, the countdown to self-destruct a constant presence in their minds. 15 minutes, Graves muttered, checking his chronometer. Not much time. He signaled to his squad, directing them to take cover behind a series of portable shield generators. Ahead, a group of Iconian defenders had established a choke point, their energy weapons creating a lethal web of fire. "Jenkins, Clark, suppressing fire," Graves ordered. "Rodriguez, I want a breach charge on that far wall. We'll flank them." As his team executed the maneuver, Graves received an update from Lieutenant Samantha Clark's tech unit. "Sir, we've located the quantum entanglement device. It's in a shielded chamber, heavily fortified. We're setting up to breach now." "Understood, Lieutenant. Work fast. We don't have much time." The air filled with the sound of weapons fire and the acrid smell of ozone. Graves' team pushed forward, meter by hard-won meter, as the clock ticked relentlessly down. In orbit, Captain Elena Petrova maneuvered the Thunderbolt through the thin Martian atmosphere, providing close air support for the ground assault. On the bridge, her engineering team worked feverishly to crack the Iconian base's systems. "Captain," her chief engineer called out, "we think we've found a backdoor into their network. If we can exploit it, we might be able to disable the self-destruct sequence remotely." Petrova nodded grimly. "Do it, and get me a secure line to Major Graves. He needs to know we're working on it." Deep within the labyrinthine structure of Krell's flagship, Commander Sarah Clark moved with silent precision. She had made her choice. The central computer hub was her target. The nanite disruptors in her pack felt heavier with each step, the weight of her mission pressing down on her. Clark paused at an intersection, consulting her heads-up display. The computer core was just ahead, but so was a new problem. Her sensors detected an advanced AI defense system guarding the approach. "Of course it couldn't be easy," she muttered, her mind racing through potential solutions. The nanites were designed to disrupt Iconian technology, but this AI system might adapt faster than they could work. As Clark formulated her plan, a warning flashed across her display. Iconian security drones were approaching her position. She ducked into a maintenance shaft, her heart pounding as the drones passed by, their sensors sweeping the corridor. Back on Earth, Sergeant Max Steele and his unit found themselves pushed to the brink. The arrival of Fleet Admiral Zarthak's dreadnought had emboldened the Iconian forces, and they pressed their attack with renewed vigor. "Fall back to secondary positions." Steele shouted over the din of battle. "Chun, trigger those charges now." Corporal Chun activated the detonator, and a series of explosions rocked the facility. Tunnels collapsed, buying Steele's team precious time to regroup. As they reached their fallback point, Steele received a priority transmission from Major Hawkins. "Sergeant, hold that position at all costs. Reinforcements are inbound. ETA 15 minutes. Steele acknowledged the order, then turned to his team. "You heard the man. Dig in and prepare for another wave. We hold this line no matter what." In space, the massive form of Zarthak's dreadnought dominated the battlefield. Its weapons tore through human defenses with terrifying ease, each shot finding its mark with unerring precision. Aboard the vessel, Zarthak himself stood on the command deck, his alien features set in a mask of cold persistence. "Target their orbital defense stations," he ordered. "Leave nothing standing." As the dreadnought unleashed its fury, Major Hawkins initiated the next phase of Protocol Omega. The asteroid belt defense platforms began to move, clustering together in predetermined formations. "All ships," Hawkins broadcasted, "clear a path for the platforms. Phase 2 is now active." The scattered human fleet regrouped, providing cover for the merging platforms. As they combined, their true nature was revealed. Massive, mobile battle stations, each armed with colossal mass drivers. The first of these improvised weapons locked onto Zarthak's dreadnought, its targeting systems calculating the complex trajectory needed to hit such a fast-moving target. With a burst of energy, the first asteroid was launched, accelerating to incredible speed. It streaked across space, hidden among the debris and chaos of the ongoing battle, on a collision course with the seemingly invincible Iconian vessel. As the asteroid hurtled towards its target, the multiple fronts of the battle reached their critical moments. On Mars, Graves' team fought their way towards a control room, while Lieutenant Clark's unit prepared to breach the quantum entanglement device chamber. Commander Sarah Clark faced off against the AI defenses in Krell's flagship, and Sergeant Steele's forces prepared for another Iconian onslaught on Earth. The next few moments would determine the course of the entire conflict, as humanity's high-stakes endeavor unfolded across the solar system. As the asteroid hurtled towards Fleet Admiral Zarthak's dreadnought, the massive Iconian vessel's advanced sensors blared warnings across its command deck. Zarthak's eyes narrowed as he assessed the situation. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, his voice calm despite the impending danger. The enormous ship groaned as its engines fired at full capacity, straining against its own mass to avoid the incoming projectile. Despite the dreadnought's efforts, the asteroid struck its starboard side with devastating force. The impact shook the vessel, sending crew members sprawling across the deck. On the Earth Defense Force command station, Major Hawkins watched the collision unfold on his tactical display. A rare smile crossed his face as he saw the dreadnought's shield readings fluctuate. "All ships, concentrate fire on the impact site," he commanded. "This is our chance to penetrate their defenses." The human fleet responded immediately, their weapon systems lighting up the void of space. Energy beams and projectiles converged on the weakened section of Zarthak's ship, slowly but surely breaking through the compromised shields. On Mars, Major Marcus Graves led his team through the final set of blast doors into the Iconian base's control room. As they entered, they were met with a hail of energy weapon fire from a group of high-ranking Iconian officers. Jenkins, Rodriguez, left flank. Graves shouted, diving behind a console for cover. "Clark, with me on the right." The human soldiers moved with practiced precision, their portable energy shields absorbing the brunt of the Iconian assault. Graves activated his tactical visor, highlighting enemy positions and relaying them to his team. "Push forward," he ordered, leading the charge with his rifle raised. The room filled with the sound of weapons fire and the acrid smell of ozone as the two forces clashed in close-quarters combat. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Samantha Clark and her tech unit breached the chamber housing the quantum entanglement device. As the reinforced door slid open, Clark's eyes widened at the sight before her. "This is much bigger than we anticipated," she muttered, taking in the complex array of machinery that filled the room. The quantum entanglement device towered above them, an intricate web of metallic structures and pulsing energy conduits. Multiple control panels surrounded the central apparatus, each displaying streams of data in the alien Iconian script. Clark approached the nearest console, her fingers flying over the interface as she began to analyze the system. "We need to disable this without triggering any failsafes," she explained to her team. "Start by isolating the power sources. We'll work our way inward." In orbit around Mars, Captain Elena Petrova stood on the bridge of the Thunderbolt, her eyes fixed on the holographic display of the Iconian base. Her chief engineer's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, we've done it," he reported. "We're in their systems. Initiating power grid cascade failure now." Petrova nodded, a sense of relief washing over her. "Excellent work. Graves, do you copy? We've bought you some extra time. Make it count." Deep within Grand Admiral Krell's flagship, Commander Sarah Clark faced off against the AI defense system guarding the computer core. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what came next. "Here goes nothing," she whispered, activating her neural implant. Clark's consciousness merged with the ship's systems, plunging her into a dizzying landscape of data streams and quantum calculations. The AI's presence loomed before her, a formidable wall of adaptive algorithms and predictive routines. As Clark engaged the AI in their digital duel, she felt the strain on her implant. Warning signals flashed across her inner vision, but she pushed on, searching for a weakness in the defenses. There, a minuscule gap in the firewall. Clark seized the opportunity, using every ounce of her training and instinct to widen the breach. With her free hand, she reached for the canister of nanite disruptors, priming it for deployment. "Gotcha," she said through gritted teeth, releasing the nanites into the system. The effect was immediate. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems began to fail. On the bridge, Grand Admiral Krell watched in growing horror as his tactical displays flickered and died. "Shut it down," he roared. "Shut everything down now." Back on Earth, Sergeant Max Steele and his unit found themselves pushed to their last line of defense within the Midwest Power Facility. Iconian forces poured through the breach, their energy weapons carving paths of destruction. Steele looked at his team, their faces grim but determined. He reached for the detonator on his belt, knowing this was their last resort. "All right, people," he said. "Protective gear on. This is going to get rough." With a deep breath, Steele activated the hidden EMP devices. A wave of electromagnetic energy swept through the facility, instantly disabling the Iconian weapons and shields. In the sudden silence that followed, Steele raised his voice. "Counterattack! Go, go, go!" His team surged forward, taking advantage of the Iconians' momentary vulnerability to regain control of key positions within the facility. In Earth orbit, Captain Jake Martinez piloted the Phoenix on a daring attack run against Zarthak's crippled dreadnought. The ship's hybrid weapon system spat fire, each shot finding its mark on the exposed reactor core. "Direct hit," his weapons officer called out. "Their power systems are failing." As the battle raged across the solar system, a new threat emerged. Long-range sensors detected a massive energy buildup near Neptune's orbit. Major Hawkins' voice crackled over the comm system, tension evident in his tone. "All ships be advised. We have a new situation developing in the outer system. Stand by for orders." The activation of the hidden Iconian superweapon added a new sense of urgency to the already desperate conflict. As Hawkins began to assemble a special task force to deal with this new threat, the human forces pressed their advantage across multiple fronts, knowing that time was now more precious than ever. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Major Hawkins' mind raced through potential strategies. "Captain Martinez, maintain pressure on Zarthak's dreadnought," Hawkins ordered. "I'm assembling a special task force to deal with this new threat." He quickly scanned the list of available ships, his eyes settling on the Thunderbolt. "Captain Petrova, disengage from Mars orbit. You're to lead Task Force Omega to Neptune immediately." Elena Petrova's voice crackled over the comm. "Understood, Major. We're disengaging now." The Thunderbolt, along with 5 other cutting-edge vessels equipped with Dr. Victor Raskov's advanced propulsion technology, broke away from the Martian orbit. As they accelerated towards the outer solar system, Petrova briefed her crew on the gravity of their mission. "Long-range scans have detected a massive energy buildup near Neptune," she explained, her voice steady despite the tension. "We believe it's an Iconian superweapon. Our job is to neutralize it before it can be fully activated." As Task Force Omega streaked towards Neptune, the battles across the solar system intensified. On Mars, Major Marcus Graves and his team fought their way through the final defenses of the Iconian control room. Energy weapons fire crisscrossed the air, leaving scorch marks on the alien alloy walls. "Jenkins, cover me," Graves shouted, sprinting towards a fallen Iconian officer. He snatched up the alien's access card, using it to unlock the central computer terminal. As the system came to life, streams of data flowed across the screen. Graves' eyes widened as he realized what they'd uncovered. "This is it," he breathed. "Their entire invasion plan, fleet structure, everything." His fingers flew over the interface, initiating a data transfer to Earth. "Major Hawkins, are you receiving this?" Back on Earth, Hawkins watched as the intel from Mars poured in. "Confirmed, Graves. Outstanding work. This could turn the tide of the entire war." Meanwhile, in the chamber housing the quantum entanglement device, Lieutenant Samantha Clark and her tech unit worked feverishly to disable the neural override amplifier. Sweat beaded on Clark's forehead as she carefully manipulated the alien technology. "Steady now," she murmured to her team. "We're almost there." With a final adjustment, the device powered down. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the solar system, Iconian ships began to move erratically, their once-coordinated attacks devolving into chaos. In Earth orbit, Captain Jake Martinez seized the opportunity. "All ships, concentrate fire on Zarthak's dreadnought. They're vulnerable." The Phoenix led the charge, its hybrid weapon systems tearing into the weakened sections of the massive Iconian vessel. The merged battle stations from the asteroid belt joined the assault, launching volley after volley of projectiles. On the surface, Sergeant Max Steele felt the shift in the battle's momentum. The Iconian ground forces, once moving with terrifying precision, now seemed disorganized and confused. "This is our chance," Steele called to his unit. "Push them back." His team surged forward, reclaiming ground they'd lost earlier. The Midwest Power Facility, once on the brink of falling, now became the center of a human counteroffensive. As the battles raged across the inner solar system, Task Force Omega approached Neptune. The massive blue planet loomed before them, its rings shimmering with an unnatural energy. "My God!" Petrova whispered as the long-range scans revealed the true nature of the Iconian superweapon. A massive structure was hidden within Neptune's rings, manipulating the very fabric of space-time. "It's a gravity manipulation device," her science officer reported. "It's creating localized gravitational distortions. If it reaches full power, it could destabilize the orbits of the inner planets." Petrova's heart made. "We can't let that happen. Prepare for engagement." As they neared the planet, a screen of Iconian ships moved to intercept them. Petrova studied the tactical display, noting the gravitational distortions caused by the superweapon. "Helm, plot a course through those distortions," she ordered. "Use them to confuse their targeting systems." The Thunderbolt and its companion ships dove into the maelstrom of warp space. Petrova felt her stomach lurch as they navigated the treacherous gravitational eddies. Iconian energy beams lashed out, some finding their mark, others bent wildly off course by the distorted space. "Shields down to 60%, her tactical officer reported. "Keep pushing," Petrova commanded. "We're almost through." As they broke through the defensive screen, the superweapon came into view. It was a massive structure, pulsing with energy, its tendrils reaching out into Neptune's rings. Petrova opened a channel to Earth. "Major Hawkins, we've reached the target. Requesting instructions for engagement." Dr. Victor Raskov's voice came over the comm. "Captain, direct assault could trigger a catastrophic release of gravitational energy. We need to recalibrate the device instead." "Recalibrate?" Petrova asked, her brow furrowing. "To what end?" "If we can adjust its output," Raskov explained, "we might be able to create a controlled gravitational pulse. One that could disrupt the Iconian fleet without harming our solar system." Petrova considered the risks. It was a daring plan, but given the alternative, they had little choice. "Understood, Doctor. We'll proceed with the recalibration." She turned to her crew. "Prepare for EVA. We're going to board that weapon." As Petrova and her team donned their space suits, the battle for the solar system hung in the balance. The outcome of their mission would determine the course of the war, and perhaps the very future of humanity. Humanity itself. Petrova took a deep breath, steadying herself for the task ahead. "EVA team, prepare for deployment," she ordered, her voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. As Petrova and her team exited the airlock, the vastness of Neptune's atmosphere stretched before them. The superweapon loomed ahead, its massive structure pulsing with ethereal energy that warped the very fabric of space around it. They propelled themselves toward the alien construct, using their suit thrusters to navigate the treacherous gravitational eddies. As they neared the weapon's outer hull, Petrova's sensors began to pick up unusual readings. "Captain," her science officer's voice crackled through the comm, "I'm detecting movement within the structure." Before Petrova could respond, a swarm of microscopic objects erupted from the weapon's surface. The cloud of metallic particles swirled around them, glinting in the dim Neptunian light. "Repair drones," Petrova shouted, recognizing the threat. "Deploy EMP grenades now." Her team reacted instantly, pulling electromagnetic pulse grenades from their equipment belts. They hurled the devices into the swarm, creating a series of silent flashes that rippled through space. The drones nearest to the blast went dark, drifting lifelessly away. But more kept coming. Petrova felt tiny impacts against her suit as the drones attempted to breach her defenses. "Keep moving," she ordered. "We need to reach the main access point." As her team fought their way through the swarm, Petrova's mind raced. The presence of these drones meant the weapon had more advanced defense systems than they'd anticipated. Time was running out. In Earth orbit, the battle in Zarthak's dreadnought reached its climax. Captain Jake Martinez watched from the bridge of the Phoenix as the combined firepower of the human fleet and asteroid belt battle stations finally breached the massive ship's defenses. Directed on their reactor core, his weapons officer called out. A blinding explosion tore through the Iconian vessel, splitting it into fragments that scattered across the orbital plane. Amidst the chaos, Martinez spotted a heavily armored pod breaking away from the destruction. "Zarthak's escaping," he growled. "All ships, focus fire on that escape pod." The Phoenix led the charge, weaving through the expanding debris field. Martinez's hands flew over the controls, executing a series of complex maneuvers to avoid collision with the dreadnought's remnants. On Mars, Major Marcus Graves stood before the captured Iconian Control Center, his fingers hovering over the broadcast controls. Dr. Emily Frost's voice came through his earpiece, tense but determined. "The modified signal is ready, Major," she said. "Remember, this won't give us control over their forces, but it should throw them into disarray." Graves nodded, though Frost couldn't see him. "Understood, Doctor. Initiating broadcast now." He activated the signal, watching as energy pulsed through the Iconian communication arrays. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then chaos erupted. Iconian ships in Martian orbit began to move erratically, their formation breaking apart. On the ground, the alien troops still fighting against human resistance cells suddenly stopped, their movements becoming uncoordinated and confused. Graves allowed himself a small smile. "It's working," he reported. "Their forces are in disarray." Back on Earth, Sergeant Max Steele led his unit in a fierce counteroffensive at the Midwest Power Facility. The once unstoppable Iconian ground forces now seemed disoriented, their tactics falling apart in the face of the human assault. "Push forward," Steele shouted, gesturing for his team to advance. They moved through the facility, reclaiming control points and reactivating defensive systems. As they secured the main control room, Steele established a makeshift command post. He quickly opened communications with other resistance cells across North America. "This is Sergeant Steele," he broadcast. "The Iconians are vulnerable. Coordinate your attacks and push them back. Today, we take back our planet." In the debris field surrounding Earth, Captain Martinez continued his relentless pursuit of Grand Admiral Krell's escape pod. The Phoenix's engines strained as they navigated the treacherous environment, dodging fragments of the destroyed dreadnought. "We're gaining on them, sir," his helmsman reported. Martinez's eyes narrowed, focused on the fleeing pod. "Keep on them. We can't let Krell escape." At Project Prometheus, Dr. Victor Raskov stood before a holographic display of Iconian faster-than-light technology. His eyes widened as the pieces finally fell into place. "That's it," he whispered. "The quantum resonance field. It's the key to their FDL drive." His fingers flew over the interface, beginning the process of adapting this revolutionary technology to human ships. If successful, it would give Earth's forces the ability to pursue the Iconians beyond the solar system. Near Neptune, Captain Petrova and her team fought their way through the swarm of repair drones, finally reaching the superweapon's main access point. Their suits were battered but intact. "Begin the recalibration sequence," Petrova ordered, her breath heavy from exertion. As her team worked, Petrova kept watch, deploying more EMP grenades to keep the persistent drones at bay. The weapon's energy output began to shift, its pulsing glow changing from an ominous red to a softer blue. "Recalibration complete, Captain," her chief engineer reported. "Initiating the gravitational pulse now." A wave of distorted space rippled out from the weapon, spreading across the solar system. On tactical displays throughout the human fleet, Iconian ships began to move erratically, their weapons firing wildly off target. Major Hawkins' voice came through the comm system, filled with a mix of relief and urgency. "Well done, Petrova. All ships, press the advantage. Take out those Iconian strongholds while they're vulnerable." As the human forces launched their coordinated assault on the remaining Iconian positions, a new alert blared through the command channels. Long-range sensors had detected a massive energy signature beyond Pluto's orbit. Hawkins' voice returned, grave with the weight of this new threat. "All commanders, we have a situation. Another Iconian fleet is inbound, larger than the first. Prepare for emergency strategy briefing." Petrova felt a chill run down her spine as she processed this information. They had won a significant victory today, but the war was just getting started. As she ordered her team back to the Thunderbolt, Her mind raced with the possibilities and dangers that lay ahead. The recalibrated superweapon pulsed behind them, a testament to human ingenuity and tenacity. But as they re-entered their ship, Petrova couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of the challenges to come. Come, the mission to Neptune was just the beginning. As Petrova and her team returned to the Thunderbolt, Major Hawkins' voice crackled through the comm system once more. Captain, we have a new priority mission. Colonel Alexei Volkov's Special Operations Unit is deploying to the Kuiper Belt. They're after an Iconian supply depot, and they need backup. Petrova's eyebrows rose. The Kuiper Belt? That's beyond our current operational range. Not anymore, Hawkins replied. Dr. Raskov has a prototype FDL drive ready for field testing. Your ship's been selected for the upgrade. Report to Project Prometheus immediately. Within hours, the Thunderbolt was docked at the secret facility orbiting Io. Dr. Raskov personally oversaw the installation of the experimental drive, his eyes gleaming with excitement. This technology is derived from the Iconian FDL systems, he explained as Petrova watched the installation. It creates a quantum resonance field that allows us to slip between space-time. Theoretically, it should get you to the Kuiper Belt in a matter of hours. Petrova nodded, her mind already racing with the tactical possibilities. And it's safe. Raskov's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. As safe as any untested alien technology can be. But we don't have time for extensive trials. The Iconians are already regrouping. Once the installation was complete, the Thunderbolt disengaged from the station. Petrova took a deep breath as she gave the order to activate the new drive. Engaging FDL in 3, 2, 1. The ship shuddered, and for a moment, Petrova felt as if her entire body was being stretched and compressed simultaneously. Then, suddenly, they were surrounded by the inky blackness of the outer solar system. Position confirmed, her navigator announced, a note of awe in his voice. We're in the Kuiper Belt. Petrova allowed herself a small smile before focusing on the task at hand. Scan for Colonel Volkov's stealth ship, and keep an eye out for any Iconian patrols. They located Volkov's ship hiding in the shadow of a dwarf planet. As they approached, Petrova saw that the planet wasn't what it seemed. It's hollow, her science officer reported, and I'm detecting massive energy signatures from within. This must be the Iconian depot. Volkov's face appeared on the main view screen. Glad you could join us, Captain. We've identified the depot's defenses, but they're more extensive than we anticipated. We need your ship's firepower to take out their main generators. Petrova nodded. We're on it, Colonel. Stand by for our attack run. The Thunderbolt swooped in, its advanced targeting systems locking onto the hidden power generators. Petrova watched as her weapons officer unleashed a barrage of precisely calculated shots. The dwarf planet's surface erupted with explosions, and the energy readings from within fluctuated wildly. Direct hits, Volkov confirmed. Their shields are down. We're moving in for infiltration. Petrova watched as Volkov's team executed their spacewalk, using specialized tools to cut through the depot's outer hull. Once they were inside, the comm channels filled with the sounds of intense close-quarters combat. Captain, her tactical officer called out, I'm picking up Iconian ships on an intercept course. They must have detected our attack. Petrova's mind raced, calculating options. Deploy our stealth drones to run interference. We need to buy Volkov more time. As the Thunderbolt engaged in a dangerous game of cat and mouse with the incoming Iconian patrols, Volkov's team pushed deeper into the depot. Their helmet cams showed glimpses of vast storage areas filled with advanced weaponry and technology. We've reached the main control center, Volkov reported, his voice tense with exertion. Securing it now. Petrova heard the sounds of a fierce firefight, then silence. Volkov's voice came through again, this time with a note of triumph. Control center secured. You're not going to believe what we found here, Captain. Some kind of advanced battle suits. They could be a game changer. Before Petrova could respond, her tactical officer shouted a warning. Iconian ships, closing fast. They've detected us. Petrova gripped her command chair. Colonel, we need to leave. Now. Understood, Volkov replied. We're gathering what we can and heading back to our ship. Cover our exit. The Thunderbolt moved into position, its weapons blazing as it kept the Iconian ships at bay. Petrova watched anxiously as Volkov's team made their way back to their stealth ship, carrying crates of salvage technology. All aboard, Volkov reported. Let's get out of here. Petrova nodded to her helm officer. Engage FDL. Get us back to Earth. As the quantum resonance field enveloped both ships, Petrova allowed herself a moment of relief. They had secured vital intelligence and technology, but the battle was just the beginning. The incoming Iconian reinforcement fleet loomed on the horizon, a constant reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. The Thunderbolt and Volkov's ships streaked through space, carrying their precious cargo back to Earth. Petrova knew that the data and technology they had acquired could be crucial in the fights to come. But as they raced home, she couldn't help but wonder, would it be enough to turn the tide against the impending Iconian onslaught? As the Thunderbolt emerged from FDL near Earth. Petrova pushed these thoughts aside, focusing on the immediate task at hand. Establish secure communications with Project Prometheus, she ordered her communications officer. We need to get this Iconian tech to Dr. Raskov's team as soon as possible. While the Thunderbolt began its approach to Earth, Colonel Volkov's team was already hard at work in the makeshift lab they had set up in the ship's cargo bay. The crates of salvaged Iconian technology surrounded them, each one a potential game changer in the ongoing conflict. This is incredible, one of Volkov's engineers breathed, carefully examining what appeared to be an Iconian power core. The energy output of this thing is off the charts. Volkov nodded, his eyes scanning the array of alien devices spread before them. Start cataloging everything. I want a preliminary report ready by the time we dock. As the two ships made their final approach to Earth, the planet below them was a hive of activity. The global uprising led by Sergeant Max Steele had gained significant momentum, with resistance cells across multiple continents pushing back against the Iconian occupiers. In the skies above New York, a human transport ship shimmered and vanished, only to reappear moments later over the ruins of London. Dr. Emily Frost watched the telemetry data stream in, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. Teleportation test successful, she announced to the team gathered around her. All systems nominal, crew vital stable. Major John Hawkins, who had been observing the test, immediately began issuing orders. Get this tech into production immediately. I want our key ships outfitted with teleporters within 48 hours. Meanwhile, on Mars, Major Marcus Graves stood before a bank of holographic displays, his fingers dancing across the interface as he launched another volley of cyber attacks against the Iconian networks. Sir, one of his lieutenants called out, we've pinpointed 3 more Iconian outposts in the asteroid belt. Graves nodded, quickly relaying the coordinates to the human fleet. Good work. Let's keep the pressure on them. Back on Earth, the Thunderbolt and Volkov's ship touched down at Project Prometheus. Dr. Victor Raskov was waiting for them, practically vibrating with excitement as the crates of Iconian tech were unloaded. This is extraordinary, Raskov muttered, examining one of the power cores. With this, we might be able to significantly boost the output of our FDL drives. As Raskov's team began the process of reverse engineering the Iconian technology, Captain Petrova received new orders from Major Hawkins. She was to take the Thunderbolt back to Neptune, where Captain Elena Petrova and her team were struggling to maintain the gravitational distortion field that was slowing the approach of the Iconian reinforcement fleet. The Thunderbolt's journey to Neptune was swift, thanks to the newly installed FDL drive. As they approached the massive Iconian superweapon, Petrova could see the strain it was under. Arcs of energy crackled along its surface, and several sections appeared to be offline. "Captain Petrova, this is Captain Martinez," she hailed the team working on the weapon. "We're here to assist with repairs and maintenance." Elena Petrova's voice came through, tight with stress. "Glad you're here, Martinez. We've got multiple systems on the verge of failure. If we lose this weapon, we lose our best defense against the incoming fleet." As the Thunderbolt docked with the superweapon, Martinez led a team of engineers to assist with the repairs. They worked tirelessly, replacing burned-out components and rerouting power to maintain the crucial gravitational distortion field. In Earth orbit, aboard the EFS Phoenix, Captain Jake Martinez continued his interrogation of the captured Grand Admiral Krell. The Iconian leader had proven resistant to traditional questioning techniques, but Martinez had a few tricks up his sleeve. "You know, Admiral," Martinez said casually, pacing around the detention cell, "your fleet is in disarray. Your ground forces are being pushed back on multiple fronts. How long do you think your reinforcements can hold out against our new defenses?" Krell's alien features remained impassive, but Martinez caught a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He pressed on, leveraging the intelligence they had gathered to paint a picture of inevitable defeat for the Iconian forces. Slowly, bit by bit, Krell began to talk. He revealed key details about Iconian fleet movements, command structures, and even some of their advanced technologies. Martinez knew this information could be the key to turning the tide of the war. As these events unfolded across the solar system, humanity found itself in a race against time. The Iconian reinforcement fleet, though slowed by the Neptune superweapon, continued its advance. But with each passing hour, Earth's forces grew stronger, armed with new technologies and strategic advantages. In the Siberian tundra, Sergeant Max Steele led his team through the frozen wasteland, approaching a hidden Iconian research facility. The Resistance fighters moved silently, their captured Iconian weapons at the ready. "Remember," Steele whispered to his team, "our primary objective is to secure their bioweapon research data. Anything else we can grab is a bonus." As they breached the facility's outer defenses, alarms blared to life. Steele and his team pushed forward, engaging in close-quarters combat with the Iconian defenders. The air filled with the sound of energy weapons and the acrid smell of ozone. Steele fought his way to the facility's main data core, quickly attaching a decryption device to download the critical information. As the data streamed into their secure storage, he couldn't help but wonder what horrors the Iconians had been developing here, and what countermeasures humanity might be able to create with this intel. With the Iconian invaders now on the back foot, retreating to fortified positions on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, Major Hawkins saw an opportunity to strike a decisive blow. He began preparations for a large-scale assault on these last enemy strongholds, knowing that the next phase of the conflict would determine the fate of Earth and possibly the entire galaxy. As humanity raced to prepare for the impending clash, the solar system buzzed with activity. New technologies were being deployed, strategies formulated, and forces mobilized. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. As the human forces rallied for the coming battle, an unexpected discovery in the far reaches of the solar system would change the course of the war. In the cold expanse of the Kuiper Belt, Colonel Alexei Volkov's team continued their meticulous exploration of the Iconian supply depot. Their earlier find had been a gold mine of advanced technology, but as they pushed deeper into the facility, they stumbled upon something that made even the battle-hardened Volkov catch his breath. "Sir, you need to see this," called out one of his engineers, her voice tinged with awe. Volkov made his way through the twisting corridors of the depot, stepping into a vast chamber that hummed with impossibly strong energy. Arranged in neat rows were sleek, cylindrical devices, each pulsing with a soft blue light. "What are we looking at?" Volkov asked, his eyes scanning the room. The engineer ran her scanner over one of the devices. "It appears to be some kind of advanced propulsion system. But, sir, the readings, they're off the charts. These things are generating localized wormholes." Volkov's mind raced with the implications. "Wormhole generators? Do you realize what this means for our fleet?" He immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. "This is Colonel Volkov. We've hit the jackpot. Prepare for an urgent tech transfer. And get me Dr. Raskov." As Volkov's team began the delicate process of extracting and packing the wormhole generators, activity on Earth reached a fever pitch. Dr. Emily Frost stood in the control center of a sprawling military base in North America, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she made final adjustments to her teleportation device. "All systems are green," she announced to the assembled officers. "Commencing large-scale test in T-minus 10 seconds." Major John Hawkins watched intently as the countdown reached 0. In an instant, the air shimmered and warped. When it cleared, an entire battalion of troops and a column of armored vehicles had vanished from the launch pad. Frost's eyes darted to her displays. "Telemetry from Mars coming in now. Transfer successful. All units accounted for. Vital signs stable." A cheer went up in the control room. Hawkins immediately began issuing orders. "Get this tech to our shipyards and forward bases immediately. I want every key asset fitted with teleporters within 24 hours. Meanwhile, in the cold reaches of Neptune's orbit, Captain Elena Petrova grappled with a critical decision. The Iconian superweapon, key to slowing the approach of the enemy reinforcements, groaned and shuddered around her. "Captain," her chief engineer reported, "the power core is showing signs of critical instability. If we maintain current output, we're looking at a catastrophic overload within hours." Petrova's heart made as she weighed her options. Begin a gradual reduction of the weapon's output. We need to keep this thing operational as long as possible, even if it means letting those bastards approach faster. As she gave the order, Petrova knew she was trading time for stability. The incoming Iconian fleet would now have a clearer path to Earth, but it was a necessary sacrifice to keep their ace in the hull functional. On the red plains of Mars, Major Marcus Graves led his team through the dusty tunnels beneath the planet's surface. Their target, a hidden Iconian communication relay that had been feeding intel to the approaching enemy fleet. As they rounded a corner, energy bolts sizzled past Graves' head. "Contact!" he shouted, diving for cover. The narrow tunnel erupted in a fierce firefight. Graves and his team methodically pushed forward, their weapons cutting through the Iconian defenders. With a well-placed grenade, they breached the final barrier and stormed the relay control room. Graves wasted no time. "Plant the charges. Let's make sure this thing never broadcasts again." Back on Earth, Sergeant Max Iron Steel coordinated a series of lightning strikes against Iconian strongholds. Thanks to Frost teleportation tech, his strike teams materialized inside enemy fortifications, catching the aliens completely off guard. In orbit, Captain Jake Martinez pored over star charts and fleet formations, using the intelligence gleaned from Admiral Krell to predict the Iconian fleet's approach. He worked in tandem with Major Hawkins, positioning human ships for maximum defensive coverage and optimal ambush positions. At Project Prometheus, Dr. Victor Raskov watched with suspenseful pause as the EFS Pathfinder, newly equipped with the Iconian FDL drive, prepared for its maiden voyage. "Pathfinder, you are clear for jump," Raskov's voice crackled over the comms. In a flash of light, the ship vanished. Tense minutes passed before a triumphant message came through. This is Pathfinder. We've reached Alpha Centauri and are preparing for return jump. As humanity integrated these new technologies and fortified its defenses, long-range sensors picked up a disturbing development. The approaching Iconian fleet was splitting into smaller battle groups, a clear sign they were preparing for a multi-pronged assault. Major Hawkins frowned as he studied the new formations. They're adapting their strategy. We need to reassess our entire defense plan. With less than 48 hours until the Iconian reinforcements reached the outer solar system, humanity stood on a knife's edge. The newly acquired technologies had evened the odds, but the sheer size of the incoming force remained daunting. As battle plans were finalized and ships moved into position, a palpable tension settled over the solar system. Humanity had faced extinction before and survived. Now, with their backs against the wall once more, they prepared to fight with everything they had. Had everything they had, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. As the Iconian reinforcement fleet approached the outer edges of the solar system, Major John Hawkins sprang into action. He strode purposefully through the bustling command center, issuing rapid-fire orders to his staff. "Initiate Operation Starfall," Hawkins commanded, his voice carrying over the din of activity. "Deploy teleportation devices to all designated points. I want our rapid response network operational within the hour." Screens lit up around the room as the teleportation devices activated across the solar system. A complex web of strategic points blinked into existence, creating an intricate network that would allow human forces to respond swiftly to any Iconian incursion. Meanwhile, in the cold expanse of the Kuiper Belt, Colonel Alexei Volkov surveyed the recently secured Iconian supply depot. His team moved with practiced efficiency, setting up the last of a series of cloaked outposts along the enemy fleet's expected approach vector. "Outpost Sigma online, sir," reported his second-in-command, her voice crackling through the comm system. Volkov nodded, his eyes scanning the holographic display of the outer solar system. "Excellent. Maintain radio silence and passive scanning. We'll be the eyes and ears of our defense." The outposts, nearly invisible against the backdrop of space, stood ready to observe and, if necessary, launch guerrilla strikes against the approaching Iconian armada. Back on Earth, Dr. Emily Frost put the finishing touches on her latest creation. She stood back, admiring the sleek, intimidating form of the Titan suit. "Run final diagnostic," she ordered her team. The suit hummed to life, its advanced systems coming online one by one. A grin spread across Frost's face as the diagnostics came back green across the board. "Notify Major Hawkins. The Titan suits are ready for deployment." Within hours, the first batch of Titan suits was distributed to an elite corps of zero-gravity combat specialists. These troops, encased in their formidable new armor, took up positions throughout the asteroid belt, prepared to engage in lightning-fast attacks against the Iconian forces. At Neptune, Captain Elena Petrova faced a critical challenge. The superweapon under her command groaned and shuddered, its power core on the verge of failure. She paced the control room, her mind racing through possible solutions. What if we pulse the gravitational field instead of maintaining it constantly? She asked her chief engineer. The engineer's eyes widened as he ran the calculations. It could work. We'd create a maze of spatial distortions without overtaxing the core. Petrova nodded decisively. "Make it happen. I want a new firing pattern ready in 30 minutes. As the superweapon began emitting precisely timed gravitational pulses, the space between Neptune and the outer system transformed into a treacherous labyrinth of spatial anomalies. On the red plains of Mars, Major Marcus Graves led his team deep into the captured Iconian base. Banks of alien computers lined the walls, their screens flickering with strange symbols. "Begin the cyber offensive," Graves ordered. His team of hackers set to work, their fingers flying over adapted interfaces. Within moments, the Iconian communication channels were flooded with a torrent of false information. Contradictory orders and misleading data flowed into the approaching fleet, sowing confusion and discord among the enemy ranks. Sergeant Max Iron Steel stood atop a hill overlooking a newly constructed ground-based defense station. The massive energy weapon, cobbled together from salvaged Iconian technology, pointed skyward, ready to defend Earth's skies. "How many more of these can we bring online?" Steele asked his logistics officer. "We've got enough salvage tech for at least a dozen more spread across the globe," came the reply. Steele nodded, his eyes never leaving the sky. "Get them up and running. We'll give those alien bastards a warm welcome if they make it this far." In the space between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Jake Martinez paced the bridge of the EFS Phoenix. A fleet of FDL-equipped ships surrounded his vessel, forming a rapid response task force unlike anything humanity had fielded before. All ships report in, Martinez commanded. One by one, the captains of his task force signaled their readiness. Martinez allowed himself a small smile. "All right, people, we're the cavalry. Be ready to jump at a moment's notice. And remember, hit hard and fast. Don't give them time to react." As the Iconian fleet entered the outer solar system, they encountered the first layer of humanity's defenses. Colonel Volkov's cloaked outpost sprang into action, launching a series of coordinated hit-and-run attacks. Volkov watched from his command post as human ships darted in and out of sensor range, striking vulnerable points in the Iconian formation before quickly retreating. The massive alien fleet, caught off guard by these swift, precise attacks, began to slow its advance. In the asteroid belt, the Titan-suited troops launched their first major operation. Moving with incredible speed and agility, they conducted daring raids on the vanguard of the Iconian fleet. Sergeant Sarah Chun, leader of Titan Squad Alpha, maneuvered her suit through a debris field, closing in on an Iconian command ship. "Squad, form up on me. Target their communication arrays and propulsion systems. Hit hard and fast." The Titan squad struck like lightning, their advanced weapons tearing through Iconian defenses. Key support ships and command vessels fell under their relentless assault, disrupting the enemy's supply lines and communication networks. As the battle for the solar system intensified, humanity's adapted Iconian technology and clever tactics began to take their toll. The invading force, despite its superior numbers, found itself fighting on multiple fronts against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. The Iconian fleet, now forced into a more defensive posture, pushed deeper into the solar system. But with each passing moment, humanity's defenses grew stronger, and the aliens' path to Earth became increasingly treacherous. In the command center on Earth, Major Hawkins watched the unfolding battle with grim satisfaction. The first phase of humanity's defense had been successful, but he knew the true test was yet to come. As reports flooded in from across the solar system, Hawkins began to formulate plans for the next stage of the conflict, knowing that the fate of Earth and all of humanity would be decided in the battles to come. As the Iconian fleet pushed deeper into the solar system, Major Hawkins knew the time had come for humanity's final play. He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the holographic display of the battle. "Initiate Operation Thunderstrike," he commanded, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Across the solar system, human forces sprang into action. Sergeant Max Iron Steel stood at the head of his Titan-suited troops, preparing for their most daring mission yet. "Remember your training," Steel said, his voice carrying through the comm channel. "We hit hard, we hit fast, and we don't let up." In a brilliant flash of light, Steel and his squad vanished, reappearing moments later in the heart of the Iconian fleet. They materialized directly aboard the alien command ships, their sudden appearance catching the Iconians completely off guard. Steele's weapon roared to life as he engaged the first group of alien defenders. The close quarters of the ship's corridors became a chaotic battleground, filled with the sound of weapons fire and the clash of advanced armor against Iconian technology. "Push forward," Steele shouted. His Titan suit's enhanced strength allowing him to physically throw an Iconian soldier into a nearby bulkhead. "Take control of their command centers." As Steele's forces wreaked havoc within the Iconian ships, Captain Jake Martinez orchestrated a symphony of destruction outside. The EFS Phoenix led a fleet of FDL-equipped ships in a series of lightning-fast attacks, appearing and disappearing around the Iconian formation with precision. "All ships, execute jump pattern Delta," Martinez ordered. In an instant, his fleet vanished, only to reappear on the opposite side of the Iconian armada. The Phoenix's hybrid weapon systems, a fusion of human ingenuity and adapted Iconian technology, tore through enemy shields with unprecedented effectiveness. Iconian ships, caught between the internal assault of the Titan troops and the relentless barrage from Martinez's fleet, began to falter. On Mars, Major Marcus Graves sat before a bank of alien computers, his fingers flying over the adapted interface. Initiating cyber offensive, he announced to his team. "Let's see how they like a taste of their own medicine." Within seconds, the Iconian communication channels were flooded with a torrent of false information. Conflicting orders and misleading data cascaded through their networks, sowing chaos and confusion throughout their ranks. Graves watched with grim satisfaction as the Iconian fleet's formation began to break apart. Some ships turned their weapons on their allies, while others retreated from phantom threats that existed only in their compromised systems. In the outer reaches of the solar system, Colonel Alexei Volkov observed the unfolding battle from his hidden outpost. He had spent weeks meticulously preparing for this moment, and now it was time to spring his trap. "Detonate the minefield," Volkov ordered, his voice calm despite the enormity of the action. A series of cloaked antimatter mines, strategically placed along the Iconian fleet's path, exploded in a chain reaction of unimaginable force. The explosions ripped through the enemy's rear guard, creating a massive debris field that further hampered their ability to maneuver and coordinate. At Neptune, Captain Elena Petrova faced a critical decision. The superweapon under her command was on the verge of catastrophic failure, its power core pushed beyond its limits. "We have one shot left," she announced to her crew, "and we're going to make it count." Petrova's fingers danced across the control panel, reconfiguring the weapon to channel all its remaining power into one final, massive gravitational pulse. As the energy built to unprecedented levels, she turned to her crew. "Evacuate the station," she ordered. "I'll stay behind to ensure the weapon fires successfully." Despite their protests, Petrova's crew complied, leaving her alone on the groaning, shuddering station. As the last escape pod launched, Petrova took a deep breath and initiated the firing sequence. The resulting gravitational wave tore through space, engulfing a significant portion of the Iconian fleet. Ships caught in its path were twisted and torn apart, while nearby Iconian wormholes collapsed, cutting off their avenue of retreat. Back on Earth, Dr. Emily Frost activated the network of modified Iconian defense platforms now orbiting the planet. The platforms hummed to life, generating an interlocking energy field that created an impenetrable barrier around Earth. A group of Iconian vessels, desperate to break through to their final objective, charged towards the planet. As they approached the defense network, they found themselves trapped in a web of destructive energy, unable to advance or retreat. Frost watched the battle unfold on her monitors, her expression a mixture of awe and commitment. "Let them come," she murmured. "Earth is ready." As the tide of battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, Grand Admiral Krell, still a prisoner aboard the EFS Phoenix, watched in disbelief as his once mighty armada crumbled before the human onslaught. The realization of defeat washed over him, accompanied by a newfound respect for the species he had once dismissed as primitive. Krell turned to Captain Martinez, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. Captain, I wish to speak with your leadership. It's time to end this conflict. Martinez studied the alien admiral for a moment before nodding. I'll inform Major Hawkins immediately. As the request for surrender made its way through the human chain of command, the battle began to slow. Ship by ship, the remaining Iconian vessels powered down their weapons, signaling their compliance with their admiral's decision. Major Hawkins, after a brief but intense discussion with Earth's political leaders, accepted the surrender. He issued orders for an immediate ceasefire and began coordinating efforts to secure the remaining Iconian ships. As the human fleet moved to escort the surrendering vessels to designated holding areas, a sense of cautious triumph began to spread through the ranks. They had faced extinction and emerged victorious, but the cost had been high. In the aftermath of the battle, as humanity began to process the magnitude of their victory, Dr. Victor Raskov and his team at Project Prometheus wasted no time. They immediately set to work, poring over the vast amounts of advanced Iconian technology now at their disposal. "This is incredible," Raskov muttered, examining a piece of Iconian equipment. "With this, we could revolutionize our entire approach to energy production." As the immediate threat receded and the work of rebuilding began, humanity stood on the brink of a new era. The solar system, once the site of a desperate last stand, now promised to be the launching pad for a new age of exploration and advancement. But even as celebrations erupted across Earth, questions lingered. How would humanity handle its newfound power? What challenges awaited them as they stepped onto the galactic stage? And what of the Iconians? Would this defeat mark the end of their ambitions, or merely the beginning of a new chapter in their relationship with humanity?
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.